Yeah, fascist book, and U-Pound. So let's just see if we're going out. Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, good. All right. Okay. Oh, blimey. Gonna be running just a few minutes late tonight, I think, people. It's 5 to 7 in the UK, and I think I'm going to be kicking off at about 5 minutes past tonight, just to sort out a few things, like bring in my guest and what have you. So bear with me, people. Just going to be about 10 minutes, and in the meantime, some wonderful music, which, by the way, Facebook is all copyright free. So stop buggering with every single show that I put out with you. My God, you bore me senseless zuckerzits. You really do. Just grow up. Try and act like an adult, yeah? When people disagree with you, you know what? Free speech or what? For crying out loud, you bloody moron. Right, okay, here we go. Bit of music. Yeah. Good. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. You know what? If you're watching this on Facebook or if you're watching it on YouTube, you don't get any video, do you? But what I've started doing is to present this thing in the nude. In the nude, yeah? So if you come on DLive, you can see me in the nude. I'm not really being honest. Let's just call that a bit of a Chuckaramana type remark. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Ten past seven. Yeah. Oh, blimey. 10 past 7. Yeah, I think so. Sorry, people. Funky, man. Copyright free, Facebook. Bloody pain in the arse. Any excuse. Right. Yeah, I've updated the time on the holding page thing on the that you can see. Yeah, 10 past, people. 10 past. I do apologise. Running a bit late tonight. Just like Brexit. Hey, Nye Bevan. Nye Bevan's on DLive. God bless you. That's Ben. God bless him. Ben, it's all very well you're watching on DLive. I mean, yeah. We're impressed, yeah. But the fact is, you're supposed to be in the studio talking to me, mate. You're my guest. I don't know. Get on Discord, sir. Oh, you've got a few minutes. 10 past, people. hold on. That was Rubbernecking. Topher Moore. It was quite good, eh? What's this? Scarlet Fire. Modus McDonald. This guy is very clever, actually. Copyright free Facebook. Yeah. Do-do-do. Sounded a bit rude. Ten past 7, people. 10 past. Do apologise. Please share the show, folks. Please share the show. It will be a good one tonight, I tell you. Yeah. Oi, Zuckerberg with an F. This is copyright free, so stop muting my show, you little twat. Still copyright free, Facebook. Just a couple of minutes, folks. Sounds a bit like what must be going through in the 1922 committee. Yeah, okay. Hey folks, good evening, good people. Welcome to the Daily Chaos. The show ain't daily, but the chaos is. Auto ab KO. And now, political popcorn. Oh, political popcorn. I tell you, I've run out of popcorn. I've been chewing my tongue for months. Benjamin Jenkins from Nye Bevan News pops political with me about these remarkable times. And so can you, taking calls on Discord from the bottom of the hour in a specially extended show tonight. I think we'll be running for at least a couple of hours tonight. So please call on in, bottom of the hour and through for the next couple of hours, guv.li/rant. You should be watching this on DLive, a network that supports us, yeah? Yeah. DLive, guv.li/chaos. That's the place to watch this show. And we'll see you in the comments. And I'll be looking after DLive comments, particularly tonight. I've been a bit bad there, I know. Please share the show, like the page, subscribe to the thing, whatever you do, on whatever network, I don't know. But, let folks know we're watching, we're thinking, we're talking, we are active! No letting up, people. No letting up. Do I have a guest? Do I have a guest? Ben, can you hear me, sir? Oh, hold on. You're coming out of my speakers. Why are you coming out of my speakers? Hello? Oh, he's gone. Oh, I don't know. Hold on. Hello? Ben, why? Hold on. Why are you coming out of my speaker? You're coming out. You're not coming out of my cans. Hello? No, you're fine. That's very strange. I can still do this. That's very odd, though. You're not coming out my cans. You're coming out my speakers. Now, hold on a sec, Ben. I'm not sure that you can be heard. Let me just see if folks can hear you. Please, somebody let me know if you can hear Ben or just me. This is very, very odd. Never had this before. Can you hear my guest, folks? Can you hear Benjamin Jenkins? And he's very quiet. He's very quiet. No, is the answer. Oh, blimey. What is going on with that then? What is going on with Discord that it can not be heard? Oh, truth. Hold on a sec. Let me just have a play. Let me have a play with my Discord settings quickly just to see if I can sort this out. No, I don't think it's you. I think it's me, but I don't understand why because I haven't changed any settings. Let me see if I can. Okay,
like
that's better. Okay, you should be heard now. So please, people, let me know that you can hear Ben. Ben, how are you doing, mate?
Very good. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. You're getting messed around with Facebook as well. You say, what's going on with you?
Oh, mate, it's very strange what's happened over the last. It's ever since the referendum and then the snap general election. So, for example, on my website, during the snap general election, I put out an article, which was an interview with former Ambassador Craig Murray. And the headline was, how can anyone believe that a woman who won't even debate with Jeremy Corbyn could negotiate with 27 EU countries? It had over nearly 400,000 reads. It was the #1 shared article on social media during the general election. Didn't come up on the Guardian's top 10 list about that, though. And ever since I put that article out, followed by another article which revealed that in 1992, Deputy Tory leader Michael Heseltine met up with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who gave him £7 million to help fund the Tory party. Ever since those two stories came out, my website has gone from having tens of thousands of people reading the articles to hundreds of people reading the articles.
Oh, yeah.
Same happens with my social media news feeds. Like across all my social media news feeds, my peak was 32.5 million. I used to average about 4.5 million a week. That's now down to about 700,000 or so.
Blimey.
Hang on a second. There's somebody in my grandmother's garden.
Yeah, you better make sure you kick the gardener out. I don't know. Right. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's have a quick look.
I'm on the phone. I'll come give you a hand now.
Let's have a quick look at the news and what's going on. Something I wrote actually earlier. I'm going to read it. Just because I think it really sums up. And then I want to get your comments on this, Ben. See what you think of this. But it kind of runs a bit like this. BBC News, PM, this afternoon, were wondering what effect an extra £500,000 spend from the Leave campaign might have had on the referendum if this dubious allegation from... Whoa, Ben, bear with me just a couple of minutes, mate. If this dubious allegation from the Ramona-infested Electoral Commission is remotely true, and it is contested, in fact, extensively to the contrary, well, I wonder what effect there was on the result from the so-called nation's broadcaster, PM, blatantly pro-EU across its programming, and from its public paid stars, in inverted commas, this propaganda funded to the tune of billions per year by the British, as well as being bribed with yet more money from the EU. Damn, such was their meddling. The BBC actively campaigned that pensioners should not even have the right to vote, anything but Remain, that is, and provided a debate for youngsters, but not for wiser folks with a greater investment in their culture and families. And I think they even dubbed their campaign something like Mugger Gran or something, didn't they? How much was all that worth? Not just during the campaign, but each and every day from the nation's broadcaster since. And what about the influence of foreign money? Should we allow ourselves to be influenced by a pseudo-Marxist fascist like George Soros? That's before we add into the mix broken purdah, tampered voter registration, the taxpayer-funded pamphlet that specified Brexit means Brexit, by the way, an exclusively Europhile civil service supporting and advising a government that deigned to take sides despite a failing EU on all fronts, and what is arguably illegal membership in the first place, FCO 301048 people, plus the admission of depraved MPs being blackmailed within that Heath government, and treaty upon treaty foisted upon us without any referendum, etc. Are you really sure remorons like Chukaramuna, Anna Soubry MP and Dominic Grieve that you want to have this debate? Of course you do. Because you know the BBC and the wider fake stream will barely report any of the facts mentioned above. And of course, truth isn't in your lexicon. Don't pay for propaganda, people. Don't fund BBC lies. Boycott bullshit. Okay. All right. Am I unfair? Am I unfair, Ben?
Sorry. Have you ever heard of the Streisand effect?
The Streisand effect? Barbara Streisand? Oh, I tell you, she has an effect on me.
Barbara Streisand, went back in the early days of the internet, Barbara Streisand found out that there was a photo of her house on the internet, and she tried to get it taken off the internet. And what happened was that everybody just kept reposting it. And it came up. A concept was coined from this experience, and it's called the Streisand effect, which is if you try and suppress something, you will inadvertently promote it. Well, I would say that the BBC's anti-EU Project Fear completely backfired because the British public in general don't like being told what to do. And if they're told, well, you should do this, pat on head, let us dictate democracy to you, the immediate visceral response from the vast majority of British people to that is no, two fingers up to you. I think I'm going to do the total opposite just because you just told me to do that. And they haven't learned their lessons. The faces on the Remainers in Parliament today is priceless. You should all go on UK Parliament live feed. Skip back to when was it? Skip back to 7:15. No, 14 minutes past 7. Where no, actually, I correct myself. If you skip back to 7:45, you just before Dr. Liam Fox speaks, they do the division, which Brexit won 307 to 301. And the look on the faces of all the Remainers is just priceless, including the Speaker of the House of Commons, I might add.
Now, hold on a sec. Is this the customs union vote?
This is the international trade.
That's actually happened now, has it? Because I've been looking for it. I didn't think it had happened yet.
We got Brexit, mate. That's what just got part over the last 2 days. Well, basically, the Remainers moaned for 2 years.
Hold on, whoa! Never. Has that vote actually taken place? Because I'm looking through the news tabs and I can't see it.
Oh yeah, that's because those morons are still trying to type up their propaganda about it. But this happened at 6:45.
Right. Do me a favor. Do me a favor, Ben, please. I'm gonna go through a bit of the news. Could you please get me a link to that? Whilst I just chew on a bit of news, and then I want to refer to that specifically because clearly that's very important. In the meantime,
there won't be news out about it for a while because they've got to polish the turd, right?
If you can cue me up more or less where I need to go to find that, I'll play it, find it, recite it,
shall I
whatever.
drop a link in the Discord chat? Shall I?
That would be awesome. I'd appreciate it. And in the meantime, just looking at the kind of a rough idea on the propaganda this morning off the back of what was a massive day yesterday, that tight vote, which essentially went our way with bless Moggy's wrecking ball into it, and they're calling it the Records of Chequers on Metro. Daily Telegraph, Chequers deal is dead, say rebels. Nice picture of Putin with Trump there. Now, this is interesting. May gives MPs an early summer holiday to save her job. And she's actually giving them a vote, isn't she, to start their holidays early. So basically, she's got a chance of surviving.
That's not just that. That is literally them. She's going to shut down the parliament so the Remainers can't bring any late amendments or anything like that to try and scupper it.
I mean, Parliament. What does that mean? It means kind of voice of the people, doesn't it? It's just incredible that she is shutting down Parliament at a time which is so key, and so she wants to take the whole EU deal thing back behind closed doors as much as she can. Extraordinarily cynical. At the one time, finally, when Parliament is beginning to do our bidding, because these little whatnots are basically worried about their jobs. They realize their constituents are getting involved and saying, "Oi, do you want to keep your job and all that?" At that time, yeah. What a convenient time to try and close down that voice of the people. Anyway, Trump defends Putin over U.S. election meddling accusations, FT. The Times, May's Brexit plan in turmoil. Guardian, nothing short of treasonous. Trump accused over Putin talks. We'll be talking about that.
Isn't it ironic?
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Did you listen? I played a bit of that yesterday. Some of the pertinent bits from the Trump-Putin press conference. Did you watch any of that, Ben?
Honest to God, I'm obsessed with domestic affairs at the moment. As long as the Russian and American presidents aren't pointing nukes at each other, I'm happy. You know,
no, they have to be. Otherwise, it's treasonous. They have to be. They have to be at loggerheads. Yeah, we can't have friendly relations with the other, global superpower. As that's not on. We got to be enemies. No, I mean that's the Hillary Clinton way. She wanted to put a no-fly zone over Syria. Provoking World War III. Not just with Russia, but with China. That would have done. Stupid idiot. That's good. It's all good libtard stuff.
I suppose when you live in very well-to-do middle-class enclaves like most of the MPs do, it's quite easy to think that you'll always be comfortable, even if the Americans and the Russians have a war. And the idea that we have been saber-rattling a war between the two major powers on Earth, I find sickening. The idea that anybody wants to add fuel to that fire, which has finally started to die down in the last decade from the peak in the 20th century of them nearly coming to blows. Like, the planet nearly got destroyed at least 3 times. And I'm no fan of Putin, right? But he's good at his job in the sense of retaining Putin's position. He's very good at playing the geopolitical game. And you know what? If you march rocket ships right up to his border in direct contravention, the guy who founded NATO said this himself. If you put the rockets there, you're breaching the deal we had with them when the communist regime fell. And if you do that, you're going to encourage the security apparatus in Russia to defend itself. You'll reap what you sow, basically. And I'm not a Russophobe, and I'm not a Putin apologist. I'm just a realist, and I think
I agree with you. I know I wasn't
each other.
I agree with you. I wasn't particularly impressed with what he did to the Chechens, but sure. Okay, all right. Putin's poodle, Daily Mirror, and they got, basically they've got nothing about Brexit on their front page off the back of that vote last night at all on the Mirror. Daily Express is talking about a hosepipe ban, for God's sake. Yesterday was one of the most important days in British politics. Throughout the last few years, an incredibly important day, giving us the opportunity of no deal.
The Express, don't you? Mirror Group of bought the Express.
Yeah, that's right. And it shows, doesn't it? The Express are so moron now compared to how they were sort of 6 months ago. It shows. Your propaganda shows through. And the Daily Star is worried about moped thugs. And well, they might be. But you know what? There's other things going on. I would say, I understand what you say. Domestic politics, there's so much going on. But the geopolitical angle and the influence is pretty huge too. Yeah, you tell me, who is more useful to the democratic will of the British people? Trump or May?
Oh, Theresa May is she's she's the worst prophylactic for the establishment I've ever seen.
What's that? Like a laxative or something?
She was not. Her job was not to do this. She wasn't supposed to end up doing this. She was supposed to do her job, which was to fudge Brexit, and she couldn't even do that.
She's had a go, hasn't she?
Ended up doing. This is hard Brexit, mate. We're going. The EU are going to reject all of this. They're going to
it's not hard Brexit. It's Brexit. No deal is exactly what Leave campaigned for. No deal. And then off the back of that, we have a trade deal. That's a separate thing. But Brexit itself is no deal. And then if they want to do a trade deal, that's great. And guess what? Of course they do. Unless, they just want to close their auto factories. Stop selling us wine, stop selling us whatever it is from Italy, etc., etc. Presumably, they still want to trade. Guess what? As soon as they see that there's true Brexit going on there, they're going to talk. Irrespective of whether or not we agree to cough up 39 billion quid. Is there anything about that doesn't make sense, Ben?
Nothing's agreed until everything's agreed. Isn't that what they said? If they don't have their £40 billion, all of their financial planning up until 2019 and all of the future financial planning was done with having the net contributions of the United Kingdom involved. Their future financial planning is in total disarray for the medium term. For the short term, they're in panic mode because there is nowhere else that 40 billion is coming from. The German electorate have made it abundantly clear they have absolutely no intention of filling the shortfall because the German electorate, I feel very sorry for. Do you know they've never had a vote on EU membership? Never. They've never had a say on whether they get to be part of this thing.
Who's never had a say?
If I were positioned back,
who's never had a say, Ben?
The Germans. The Germans has never once had a vote on this.
Yeah.
Not once.
Yeah.
And that is a very worrying thing. That is, if you're sort of baking failure into the cake when you do stuff like that, because there's going to come a point where the German electorate says, "Well, look, we can't keep paying for this," and they're right. Yep. And that is why there's the second largest party in Germany right now is a borderline neo-fascist party, and that happens when you take people's right to self-determination away from them. They respond, and they will put something in place that tells you how unhappy they are. So, for example, today I was trying to re-recruit an old Labour organizer who's converted to UKIP. I was trying to re-recruit him back to Labour. Mm-hmm. And I gave him a list. He was like,
"My God, why?"
I'd like.
Okay, we'll come on to that. Go on.
Well, because I've got this dream that I'm going to purge the Labour Party of all the traitors and make it a proper party of the working class again. Mm-hmm. And everybody gets to have a dream, okay? And that's my dream.
Cool, blimey! I'll tell you what, there is optimism.
Give me 10 MPs I can like, and I was like, okay. And I gave him a list of 10 MPs. He went through one of them, right? And he was like, you failed you, and he said to me, "You're usually better at this." And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I've gone through that guy's social media feeds. He'll wish Muslims an Eid Mubarak. There's not a single video from him wishing Christians a happy Easter. And I looked at his Christmas message, and he wished them a happy holidays." And he's like, "This is the problem: is they cannot be shotgunning themselves in the foot like this, because if they don't think I realize the message I'm getting there, which is that they've got a constituency, they've picked it, and I'm not a member of it. Yeah. Then and he said to me that I'm deluding myself, thinking that there's anything other than a treachery going on there. Now, I happen to know that MP, and I said to him, have you got an answer for this?" And he hasn't messaged me back yet. And I've said to him, "Look, this is the problem. You've with your identity politics, you've made the British working class identify as white, which is something we've never done before, right? We've never skin color's never been a big thing for the Brits. Mm-hmm. It's mainly about you're gonna pay
shared
taxes,
values,
you're gonna work, you're gonna contribute,
shared values.
You can be British. Whereas now, because of the identity politics, because you've got the LGBTQ QWERTY alphabet, And you've got the Black Lives Matter Brigade, and then you've got the pro-Muslim Brigade, and then the pro-Israeli Brigade in the Labour Party. They're all in there. And do you know what there isn't? There's no pro-white working class brigade. There's just Dennis Skinner, and he's 86, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
That's right.
You know, that's a demographic problem. And there are a lot of scare stories then that come from the right saying, oh, we're going to be in a minority by 2060.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you add up all of the other minorities, including the Poles, we'll be in a minority. But by 2060, all white people are going to be voting in a bloc. And they're going to be voting against the others. And that's the danger, is that instead of it being about politics and all of us having a shared culture and civic nationalism, it turns into ethnic nationalism. And the Labour Party are facilitating that. They literally drive white people to identify, white working class people into identifying as white working class. And if you go to Rotherham, you know, if you go to any of these other towns where these things have happened, where it's, you know, Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, now we've got loads of different types of Muslims in our country.
Yep.
And it's really unfair on all of the other Muslims who've been quite, you know, there've been problems, but they've been pretty well integrated for the last 3 or 4 decades. And then all of a sudden, in the last 2 decades, we got these Saudi Arabian-backed Wahhabi nutters going into British mosques, bullying the Muslims in there, saying, if you don't worship our brand of Islam, we're not going to let you touch the black box. You'll never come on Hajj.
Yeah.
And when Muslims call other Muslims unbelievers, when any religious people start having a religious war with their own side saying you're not pure enough, it always turns really nasty. And the Labour Party the Labour Party of the past hasn't just facilitated this, it seems to have actively encouraged it and then ignored the consequences. And they keep on acting as if there's not going to be any pushback to that.
Yeah.
There will be a pushback.
But people are moronic, aren't they? They're moronic. I mean, this kind of political correctness is... I'm just showing something on the screen now. If you're on DLive, you can see this. There's a picture of this from the anti-Trump demonstration the other day in London or something. And there's this white girl, a couple of white girls or whatever, holding a banner saying, ban white men. I mean, talk about when your conditioning runs to hating your own existence. You've arrived at Libtard Central. Next stop, Diane Abbott. I mean, it's just absolutely mad. Absolutely mad. How could you you're just fall on your sword. Commit suicide, love. If that's the way you feel, that's the result. That's the reality.
Well,
it's completely
Diane
nuts.
Abbott's constituency are Christians. The people who vote for Diane Abbott, those black British people are Christians.
Yeah.
And they're the people who are on the front line against the extreme Muslims in those areas of London. Because, of course, there was white flight. They all moved to Essex. The people left there dealing with that, the Christians that are left in London dealing with the consequences of the extremism that's going on in certain parts of the Muslim communities, they tend to be black Christians. When you see the videos on YouTube of down Speaker's Corner and the absolute travesty that's happened to the whole notion of English free speech down there, if you go down and look at the people who are fighting them and arguing with them, it's black Christians, right? And that's saying something. That's saying that this isn't about race.
Yeah, that's right. I agree.
About ideology,
I hear you.
right?
This
is about people who think that they get to cut other people's fucking heads off. And
none of that. We're not going to be swearing. We're going to be good tonight.
That was my first one, to be fair.
You're not allowed any. Right. You're not allowed any. Right. Okay. Look, please find me the latest deal with what's going on with the Commons vote. And in the meantime, I'm just going to go through a couple of ancillary news stories or what have you, just to give you a tone of what's going on around and about things that do apply to us, not necessarily directly, but maybe indirectly. According to Rasmussen report, 73% of Democrats stateside want a fresh face as their 2020 nominee. So there you go, Hillary, Bernie, Joe Biden. Guess what? You're yesterday's fish and chip wrapper. Anyway, and by the way, you look great in an orange jumpsuit, Hillary. I would welcome it, darling. It sounds to me that what Trump said in his press conference yesterday translates as lock her up. Not just her, but the deep state. No?
The DNC refused to volunteer their server to the FBI in 2017. So
33,000 emails. Go on.
Yeah, no, but the server they had. That's her private server. That's Hillary Clinton's server. I'm talking about the Democratic National Committee server is the thing that they're accusing the Russians of hacking.
Yes,
they refused to hand it over.
Right.
So there is no way that the FBI can know who hacked that server, because they don't have access to the server, because the DNC's legal team refused that access. So this is definitely political. What's going on here? This is definitely about a post.
But also,
I know you just said Bernie there. The Bernie Sanders brigade are the ones who have been at the sharp end of getting this story out, because before they tried to rig the general election, the presidential election, excuse me, they did rig the nomination. Right? They rigged.
That's right.
Bernie Sanders.
That's right. That Wasserman Schultz woman who had to quit over it, the chairperson for the DNC. And so she's basically involved in electoral fraud, and she's still a free woman.
Yep.
And the same sort of deal with Donna Brazil, who's been coming out today going, oh, Trump is such a nasty man, blah, blah, treason, treason, treason. She was feeding Hillary Clinton questions during the debate against Trump. One of them, anyway. She admitted it. She had to quit CNN over it. Oh, gee. Anyway, go on. Go on, Ben.
That whole narrative is on its face false, and most American voters who are politically active are aware of that. It's only the harpy, hysterical, anti-Trump brigade who have any belief in that narrative, and unfortunately, the harpy, hysterical, anti-Trump brigade means the entirety of the British political establishment, including the right wing, who just. Yep. I have no idea why they buy into this thing. And here's a really bad thing: do you remember the story about how the CIA got hacked and all of their anti-hacking things got hijacked by hackers who can now access all of that technology? Did you remember that story?
No, I don't actually. I'm not sure that I do.
In 2015. Yeah.
Go on.
The CIA's online warfare department got completely hacked.
Right.
And one of the things that got leaked and released as a program is a program that means that you can hack someone, you can do an attack, and then you can make it so that the IP address looks like it comes from somewhere completely different.
Really?
So that it's a completely untraceable hack.
Yeah, you spoof the IP.
Yeah. So even if they said, oh, we can prove it's Russia, we know that the CIA has developed a technology whereby massive online digital attacks can be done against a computer system, and you can falsify the source of the attack. So even if they said, "Oh, we've got the proof," you could say to them, "But how do you know that's the proof? Because you've invented the technology that means that this can be faked. So how do you know that technology isn't being used against you right now?" To which the honest answer is, we don't. Well, then that's not above the burden of proof, is it? So the whole narrative is just so patently, objectively false that it almost doesn't bear thinking about, which is why I don't believe anything I read about Trump anymore. I listen to what the man says. I'm not a fan of his in any way, shape, or form. Wouldn't have voted for him. Actually, no, I would have voted for him over Hillary Clinton. But if I was American, I would have made sure Hillary Clinton lost. But then I probably would have ended up like Seth Rich. Yeah. So there's that.
Oh, blimey, Seth Rich. Yeah, Rolling Stone magazine. His car went into a tree, didn't it? And they. Oh no! Sorry, Seth Rich was her
shot in the back of the head by muggers.
Sorry, yeah. Seth Rich was one of the guys working on the campaign who they reckon had the inside scoop on the reality of what was really going on with the DNC campaign.
He was the source for the WikiLeaks.
I was thinking of Hastings, the Rolling Stones bloke, who's another dubious death. Go on.
So with regards to the whole Trump narrative, he's going to win in 2020. There is no one that the Democrats can put up against him who's got a chicken's chance of winning.
What about George Clooney? Oprah Winfrey.
George Clooney and Oprah Winfrey. If the whole thing that the Democratic Party have been saying is we've got a reality TV star president, and then their response to that is let's get another TV star, then it sort of undermines most of their criticisms of Trump in the first place.
Yeah.
Out of the fact that his economic record smashes Barack Obama's, Barack Obama should have had 3 to 4% GDP growth coming out of that recession. He barely scraped past 1.8. Trump's that you've got the highest level of African American employment in the history of the United States of America under the so-called racist Trump. They say he's the first presidential candidate in the history of the United States of America to stand on an openly pro-gay rights platform. He went to the Republican convention, said to them, I support LGBT rights, and if you vote for me, you're going to have to support them too. And the Republicans clapped. And that was when I thought, oh dear, this guy's definitely going to win. Because if you can go to the Republican convention, which 5-10 years ago had Mitt Romney, the Christian crazy, and then Bush, the Christian crazy, and all of the other right-wing Christian that there's got in America, all of them applauding a man supporting gay rights. If he can do that with them, he can do anything with anyone. And they completely underestimated him from the beginning. And all of this forgets the fact that Donald Trump's candidacy was supported primarily by Hillary Clinton's team. They called him the Pied Piper candidate. That one bit them in the ass, didn't it? So they were telling CNN.
That guy goes on. He was on today again, wasn't he? He's talking about morality and all of this. He's a nation slayer. Look at what he and his Secretary of State, that bloody Clinton woman, did to Libya. Absolutely ruined the place. You can't tell me that it's better off than it was. And guess what? It's created another headache for Europe. Europe, I'm talking about, not the bloody EU. It's created a headache for them too. They probably want that headache. Of course they do. Coudenhove, Kalergi and all that. But it's created a massive, massive problem. And that is what Obama did. That was his watch. That was his war. Libya. Absolutely disgusting, atrocious. It's got no moral value whatsoever off the back of that.
Well, there are slave markets in Libya now. Yeah. Just off the coast of southern Europe. You can buy black people now. It's like the olden days. That's what Hillary Clinton did.
Blimey.
And do you know who it is?
Can we sell Diane Abbott? Sorry. That's probably in bad taste, isn't it? But nonetheless, it's from the heart.
The thing about Diana, I would say this, right?
Go on.
She's in her 60s, and so she's deserving of the
she wouldn't get much, would she?
That we as English speakers are raised to show to our elders. She's from her constituency, which is a largely black constituency, and they vote for her to be their representative. She's got foot-in-mouth syndrome, and she's not very good at mathematics.
No, she walks around with an abacus.
She is at least consistent and honest about her opinions. Diane Abbott would never lie to you.
Yeah, at least we know that she's racist.
Win your vote.
It's true.
She would never do it. It's the same with Jeremy Corbyn. They won't lie to you to win your vote. They don't know how to lie to be popular. They're not like Tony Blair. And so that we need to get back. Hold
on. They don't know how to lie to be popular. Now, Tony Blair used to be good at that, but he's not anymore, is he?
No, definitely not. Tony Blair is the biggest advert for Brexit ever. Every time he talks saying we should stay in the EU, I'm like, keep talking, Tony. You're making the argument for me.
Sorry.
Keep going, boy.
Go on.
You keep doing it. It's good for Brexit. Every time that man opens his gob,
it's wonderful.
It's really good for Brexit.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. I'll tell you what. Just now, I want you to get get me that link, sir. And I'm just going to play something just to give you a bit of an idea of how they sound at CNN. We've got Trump surprised. Fierce criticism of Putin news conference, according to CNN. He's not surprised. He knew exactly what he was doing. Let's have a listen just to get a flavor of how Fake Stream is framing this. With one or two quotes from the usual suspects, just so that we know what the enemy's talking about here.
President of the United States chose Russia. We want to present a range of reaction this morning. Listen to this. Senator John McCain calls it one of the most disgraceful performances by an American president in memory.
John McCain is a warmonger. He's got no moral fiber whatsoever.
Former CIA Director John Brennan says it was nothing short of treasonous.
John Brennan is responsible for millions dead on this planet, that bastard.
Only were Trump's comments imbecilic. He is wholly in the pocket of Putin.
Senator Jeff Flake notes, quote, I never thought I would see the day when our American president would stand on the stage with the Russian president and place blame blame on the United States for Russian aggression. This is shameful.
I know a lot of Americans have a lot to say about Flake as well, and he is a bit of a flake, I understand. I don't really know enough to say, but I have seen a lot of people being very calling him out for the kind of character he is as well.
End quote. Even more lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans, spoke out against the president's position.
The president's comments made us look as a nation more like a pushover.
We did not negotiate from a position of strength. We acted from a position of weakness.
I've seen the Russian intelligence and manipulate many people in my career, and I never would have thought.
Come on.
The U.S. president would be one of them.
Try not to choke.
To side with this former KGB officer.
Oh, it's Anderson Cooper. This will be funny.
Our own intelligence agency.
Come on, you CIA shill.
Act of betrayal of the United States.
At every step along the way, the president is kneecapping our allies.
Hold on, Ben. What's that? What's about Cooper?
Anderson Cooper used to work for the CIA.
That's right. Yeah, and he's also descended from the Vanderbilts or something, isn't he? Robber barons, I think he's another one. But look, I mean, the thing is, this is not America versus Russia, which is the way that they're trying to still flaunt this story. It's about some decent people. We hope, giving the benefit of the doubt to a president who so far has done all the right thing, all the things he said he would do, despite having one hand tied behind his back. It's about good versus the deep state. That's what it's about, and that's what these people are not being honest about. Bit more of this.
Can I play you a clip? Can I play you a clip of everybody who supports Brexit in Parliament cheering when this vote comes out? Because it's brilliant.
Oh, please do, Ben. Please do. Hold that thought just for a sec. Hold that thought just for a sec. But yes, we're going to come on to that. We will come on to that.
To our adversary.
This is Schumer.
It showed me that Mr. Trump is pretty weak, particularly when it comes to Vladimir Putin. He's not willing to stand up to him.
Newt Gingrich, one of the strongest, staunchest supporters of the president, writes, "It is the most serious mistake of his presidency and must be corrected immediately."
And Fox News, whose commentators have often served as the president's personal cheerleaders, even some of them could not hide their shock.
Good God.
This was clearly not his best performance. He's done a whole lot better than this. He should have defended us. He should have defended his own intelligence community.
It was not a very...
But it isn't his own intelligence community. It's more to do with Soros than it is to do with the United States of America.
Forceful presentation from President Trump with Putin standing right next to him.
I don't know.
Not forceful at all.
The Wall Street Journal, owned by the president's friend Rupert Murdoch, writes, Mr. Trump projected weakness. He was the one on the stage beseeching Mr. Putin for a better relationship while the Russian played it cool and matter of fact. The Washington Post puts it most bluntly, Trump just colluded with Russia openly.
Oh, for crying out loud, guess what? He's trying to have decent relations with Russia. Anyway, okay. So that's a bit of a vox pop from the usual suspects or whatever.
Donald Trump could save a baby, right? And they would say Trump grabs baby. That's what you're never going to get the truth from those people. That's not their job. Their job isn't to put out news. Their job is to put out It's not
to put out what
in America knows that. No one watches that stuff anymore. Like they've got in America, right? CNN, they're pulling in 900,000 viewers. Can you believe that in a population of 330 million? So
900,000. And I'll tell you what, that stat isn't true either. And I know that for a fact because my cable company, we told them I said I don't want your TV anymore. I want the web and I want a phone. I don't want any TV stuff. It's all rubbish. And they said, oh, you know what? We'll throw it in for free. And the reason they do that is because it props up the ratings for people like CNN. It's absolute nonsense. I bet they haven't even got 900,000 now.
Which is scary to think for them, right? Can you imagine how much you'd be panicking if you were one of them? If everything you'd been working towards in your career for decades.
It's more than that.
You got to,
they think they're going to go to prison. They're worried that they're going to end up in prison. No?
Oh, I'm not just talking about Hillary Clinton.
No, I know. I know you're not.
I'm talking about all of them. Everyone in the media establishment in the USA and in the UK. Like like my Facebook page gets more traffic than BBC Politics. That must terrify the person who runs the BBC Politics Facebook page.
Go on,
and if
mate.
it doesn't, it should.
Go on.
You know,
Nye Bevan News on Facebook gets more than BBC Politics.
Right, we get more than the Tech Spectator. We get more than the Times and the Sunday Times. And there's loads that don't even appear on the list. Like you name them. There are 3 organisations that get more traffic than us in British media on Facebook, and that's the Independent, the Guardian, and the Daily Mail. And I beat everyone else.
Blimey, the Independent.
Why?
How frightening.
And,
Independent of brain.
Labour Leave just employed me as a strategist. So I'm going to be advising the Leave part of the Labour Party how to actually say things properly. That might help.
Oh well, I mean, I mean, this has got to be the really sums up the establishment's thoughts. This is MSNBC contributor and former Watergate prosecutor Jill Wine-Banks stated President Trump's performance in Helsinki will live in infamy as much as the Pearl Harbor attack or Kristallnacht.
I was just going to say
it's insulting. It's Kristallnacht to compare it with Kristallnacht, for God's sake. To compare it with Pearl Harbor, absolutely disgusting.
Where's the outrage from the Jewish community in America at that, though? That is
bloody ought to be.
That's frankly an offensive comparison.
Very offensive.
You're comparing Jewish families in Europe having their property rinsed from them, and their stuff smashed up, pending everything that happened after.
I wonder
how
many Jews were killed that night too.
Yeah, exactly. And you're comparing that to Trump going to a summit with another president. It's insane. And speaking of which, yesterday, Chuka Umunna, because they were all losing in Parliament, right? Chuka Umunna was like, "Oh God, when in doubt, bring the anti-Semitism smears out." So he was saying Labour's got a big problem with anti-Semitism. So I crunched some numbers, and I wasn't comfortable doing it because I'm not the sort of person that really likes to find out how many Jews we've got in our Parliament. But I was like, look, the Jewish community is 0.3% of Britain. But Jews make up 3.4% of the British Parliament. That means they're overrepresented by a factor of 1,100%. Can someone please explain to me how a group of people who are overrepresented by a factor of 1,100% are being discriminated against? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The least represented group in Parliament is the working class. Nowadays, the least represented group in Parliament is the working class. Most of them are not from the working classes, right? And so it's very strange that you've got
how well represented are paedophiles?
Oh well, who knows, mate? Theresa May lost all the files. Do you know what I mean? Which that's one of the problems I've got with the Tommy Robinson issue is like let's start at the top. That woman, right? So I've got a recording of an interview with the head of the child abuse inquiry. Her name's Sharon Evans, and if you go on the Nye Bevan News Facebook page, it's been posted within the last 2 months, and it had 170,000 views. And she basically says, in terms, I was told by Theresa May's chief of staff, she was the home secretary at the time, that she's going to be the prime minister someday, and I need to shut up. And that's what the lady who was in charge of the child abuse scandal was told by Theresa May's chief of staff. So if we're gonna that is a problem. It crosses communities. There's a specific problem with it with the Pakistani Muslim community. But I've had issues with that in my own family. I had to report my half brother for doing that, right? So it's not something that isn't the response from families. The response from my own family, like I'm a traitor to half of my family for testifying against my brother because my half brother raped one of my best friend's nieces.
Now hold on a sec. Whoa! Is this the no allegations? Yeah, it's got to be concrete.
No, he went to jail, mate. I gave my half brother an ultimatum. I said, either me and Dwayne are going to take you up in the mountain right now, and I'm going to bash your skull in with a brick, or you're going to turn yourself into the police. And he turned himself into the police. He went to jail for 2.5 years. He gave my sister's home address to a nonce in prison who started writing her letters. And the prison let that nonce send those letters to my sister. And when I phoned the prison up and said, what are you letting this happen for? They were like, oh, well, we can't stop him. And I was like, well, you better fucking aren't.
No. For crying out loud, you're a very passionate man. Okay, New York Times is saying that George Soros bet big on liberal democracy. Did he? Now he fears he is losing. And they've got this big article I read earlier. His enemies paint him as all-powerful, but the billionaire philanthropist reckons that his political legacy has never been in greater jeopardy. Good to read that. Thank you, New York Times.
Also, wait, you know the number one place in the USA where children disappear?
Mm-hmm.
Washington, D.C.
Really?
Yeah. Number one. And it's like by massive amounts.
Really?
That's fact. And there's a guy, right, who did a news report on that whole Pizzagate thing. And he got disappeared for 2 years. And then he turned up 2 years later in Acapulco. Let me see if I can find you what his name is. Ben something. I'll have a look into it now. But can I play you this clip of Parliament where the vote is announced? Because it's just great.
You can. As soon as we've got through a few more news stories, I want to get through this section. And then I want to talk exclusively really about that pretty much and ask you a little bit about the Labour Party too and what's going on there and ask you why on earth you support them. But just a few other. Go on, Ben.
Yeah, look. The Labour Party is supposed to be for people.
No, we're going to come on to that. Let me get through this news bit. Austria is refusing to take more boat migrants after a ship of 450 arrives in Europe. So that keeps on going on. That's according to Breitbart. And then we've got Brexit Live. Theresa May suffers humiliating Brexit defeat as MPs launch Remain Rebellion, which I guess is going to take us into what Ben was talking about. Theresa May suffered a humiliating Brexit defeat in the Commons this evening as Tory rebels voted against the government to keep the UK part of Europe's medicines framework. But the Prime Minister... Hold on, whoa. But let me finish this. But the Prime Minister managed to stave off a more serious setback over Remainer plans for continued customs union...
Desenvídiate y podrás ganar 200 euros a la semana.
No way! Last night, 4 amendments put forward by Jacob Rees-Mogg's European Research Group passed, steering Mrs May's soft Brexit blueprint in a harder direction. But today, pro-EU Tories had the chance to take their revenge with the Brexit trade bill. Tory MPs Stephen Hammond and Nicky Morgan put forward a new amendment to the current bill, which would force the UK to seek customs union membership if negotiators are unable to strike a free trade deal with Brussels by January the 21st, 2019. But despite signs that there could be enough votes to write the amendment into the government's Brexit trade bill, MPs voted 307 to 301 against it. Ben, what does this mean?
Well, basically it means that we can't be forced into a customs union. What they were trying to do was make it so that if there was no deal, we would default back into where we were before all of this happened. It was very cynical, actually. In fact, it was incredibly cynical. All of their tactics have been cynical. And they deserve everything they get. And the problem is, if the Remainers had gotten with the program and said, "Well, democracy happened. We're all leavers now. We're all Brexiteers now. Let's try and get the best deal we can."
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Brexit supporting people would have been magnanimous in victory and would have said, okay, well, seeing as you're being so reasonable about it, let's see if we can come up with the best deal.
I think you're right.
Can actually come up with something.
I think you're right.
That's all. But because they were so recalcitrant for 2 years, whinging and whining and moaning, there is no appetite on the part of Brexit supporters to give them anything. And so they won't get anything. And what's going to happen now is, like you say, where it says a crushing defeat for the government? What they mean is it's a crushing defeat for Theresa May's Chequers deal. But Theresa May has already abandoned her Chequers deal. Yesterday, Theresa May whipped her own MPs to vote against her own Chequers deal because she completely abandoned it and was like, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. If I'd known this was going to happen, I would never have made this deal. And what's happened is that there has been a massive reassertion of the notion that 17.4 million is more than 16 million. And they've all just remembered that again. And they've also had a reassertion of the fact that extrapolated as a general election, 17.4 million voters is 408 seats, which is three quarters of the Tory seats of Brexit, 2/3 of the Labour seats of Brexit. You know, if you can't shotgun, politicians do want to keep their jobs, right? And they are aware.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I was doing yesterday was I was ringing every single Remainer MP who I knew was going to cause trouble. I started with Stephen Kinnock. And I said, the last thing I want to do is have to go around your constituency, following your campaign teams around, knocking on every door you knock on, speaking to the people immediately after you speak to them, and convincing them in this accent why they shouldn't vote for you. So why don't you just, stop causing trouble? And I went through every single one of them. I spent half of the day on the phone just leaving messages like that. And I think it's kind of worked. Like a couple of months ago, I rang up Jacob Rees-Mogg's office and spoke to them for a good hour, saying, look, if you guys stick to hard Brexit, no ECJ, no customs union, no single market, no free movement, you would win a landslide at a general election. And the idea that you would deviate away from that is electoral suicide. And you really need to get that point across. And if it comes to it, and you need somebody to explain this to your supporters, I'll come and explain it to Theresa May if you want, in this accent, from the part of the political spectrum I come from. And if you're hearing it from me, I'm not a strategist with a pro-Remain or angle to grind, and it's not in my interest at all to collude with the Tories. It'll destroy my reputation. But if Jeremy Corbyn hadn't changed his tone slightly and changed what he was doing, I would have had to have done that, because there was a point where the Labour Party were literally trying to fly in the face of British democracy, and they've crawled back away from that one now. And well, not the PLP, not most of them, but enough of them realised that, because I rang them all up, and I rang all Labour people as well, and I just said, look, I run the biggest independent left-leaning news page on social media, and if you carry this stuff on, I'm going to put a live stream up saying, hi, my name's Benjamin Jenkins, I founded Nye Bevan News, and I'm joining the Tory party because they're the only ones who are going to bring Brexit. And I did, and about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I threatened them with that, and they started changing their messaging accordingly. But not enough for me, but enough that they weren't just flying in the face of democracy. Because this is what this is about. It's like, if they cheat this, if Brexit doesn't happen, we're going to be like Ireland or Portugal or Holland. Democracy dies. It's like when you cheat on your missus and you don't talk about it afterwards, and you never talk it through. And even if you do, it's never the same again, right? If you cheat on democracy, you don't ever get it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so the hammering home that point, whether you Remain or leave, what Remain voters need to understand is, and another point I put to Remainers is, if Remain had won and Nigel Farage had said, oh, well, it was very close, what do we want? Should we have soft Remain or hard Remain? Should we just leave the customs union, or should we leave the customs union and the single market? I would have said, no, we lost. We stay in everything, and if we want to advocate for leaving the EU, we're going to have to build up the head of steam again and go again when the time is right. But it is not right now, because it would be anti-democratic. And I would have said that. And anyone on the Brexit side who was like, we need to stop Remain, I would have said, look, you're being anti-democratic. But by the same token, there's no such thing as soft Brexit or hard Brexit.
That's right.
Brexit, or staying in the European Union.
For purely practical reasons, because you can either be in or you can be out. If you want your independence, if you want to be able to trade with the world, then you need to be out. So actually, I'm not sure that Brexiteers could actually have really compromised. I don't really see that there is a compromise on Brexit.
Can I butt in for a minute, Ollie?
We've got Carl Stephen here. Carl, God bless you, mate. What would you like to ask?
You got Gremlins, your Facebook feed stopped, so I thought I'd tell you that. And I've also put something in the Hull Cracker Mirrors about Theresa May's vote thing today as well. For you to
My Facebook feed has stopped. Oh no, this Facebook.
No, the Facebook feed for the show stopped.
Surely not. Facebook wouldn't be messing around with that. Hold on a sec. Let me have a quick look. Let me see if I can sort that out. Carry on, guys.
Yeah, I've also posted in Hall of Crap Mirrors in Discord, Theresa May has been handed a huge boost after government saw off an attempt by the Tory rebels to force Britain to join a customs union with the EU after Brexit.
Yeah.
That was just posted.
I think we're still on Facebook, guys. Yeah, no, we are on Facebook. We're still going out on Facebook, I think. Yeah. Okay, look, I'm going to take a few comments from other folks, and then I'm going to come back to you, Carl, and ask you what you want to ask. We've got Andrew Skelton on DLive. Ask Ben, why does he think there are only 40 mosques in the whole of Wales? Only 40. Whilst in London alone, there are 423. Good God. And over 500 churches closed down. Only 40 mosques. Well, I imagine it's got something to do with the population, hasn't it, Ben?
Yeah, white flight in the later part of the 20th century when all of the now Essex boys moved out of places like Dagenham and places like that. And that was the last sort of English white working class that were left in London, and they've all gone now. That's one reason. Another reason is money. You know, London's richer than Wales. And when immigrants come here, they come here to do better for themselves, right? And they come here to get jobs. And provided they pay taxes and all of that stuff, I got no problem with that. But the problem for Londoners, and specifically for the English, who they get the worst rap ever. Like, you can be as racist as you like about English people. For example, the insult gammon.
Yep.
Do you know where that comes from?
What's that? What comes?
The insult
What
gammon is what the Wahhabi psychopaths call us.
Hold on.
That's
what do they call us? Sorry?
The white working, the Wahhabi
and the Salafists,
Muslim psychos, they call us gammon. That's what they call us, pig and swine gammon. And so it's one of the things that started really scaring me was when the liberal left started using that insult, which is, if you go on, I think it's Paul Joseph Watson, he's got a video from 2017 of a man, he spit in a woman's face. He's done something wrong driving and it's crashed into someone and they're trying to film the damage for insurance purposes, and he just goes off. And he starts saying all of this stuff. And those insults do come from the extreme Wahhabi sect of Islam. It's what they call us because we eat pork. And so when the liberal left wing starts saying that as an insult, what they don't realize is that they're actually using that insult, and that confirms to a lot of the people on the right, especially the people who are in support of Tommy Robinson, all of who are not all on the right as it happens. It confirms to them that something very dangerous has happened, that the idea, the memetics that has gone on, that this meme from the extreme Islamic community has transposed all the way deep into the white middle class liberal left. And whenever I see anyone calling someone gammon, I go absolutely mental.
I hadn't realized that. So this term that now is being used to describe Brexiteers is actually, there's actually more to it that we hadn't realized. It is an insult from Muslims to white people or to non-Muslims. It's a racial slur. That's very interesting, isn't it? Well, you know what? I love pork. And call me gammon all you like. I don't give a stuff. But on the other hand, I think you look really silly walking around in a portaloo. And I don't think it's very, very nice for young girls to have to face the rest of her lives behind curtains either. Thomas White, people all over the world are fed up with the crap governments have been dishing out for years. And every time people pick up a new party, they always come up with, if the last party never left the country in slush, in such a bad state, we would be able to do what we said would do. It's the same crap all the time. That's right. Breaking mandates. Well said, sir. Paul Reesham, Trump 8 years, then Ivanka, first Madam President. Clinton having a meltdown was a laugh. Oh my God. Can you imagine if we get that Clinton girl, what's her name? The who isn't Bill's daughter in instead. Anyway,
shoelaces, mate. It's not going to happen.
Hey, no, I don't think it is. Charlotte Jameson don't slate Trump on here. We'll smash your face in. Lots of laughs. And Anderson, $30,000 a day. Cooper, my God, is that really what he gets for spewing that crap?
Rachel Madcow gets $185,000 a week.
Really? I'll tell you what. But do they feel happy? Well, not inside themselves, they don't, I don't think. Countries to be peaceful with. Thomas White. I think he's talking about Russia, Trump, Putin. And also says they're worried they will all be crushed with two good leaders. Yeah. So is the new deal with these new concessions a good deal? Okay, let's come back to that. And Carl, you tell me, Mr. Stephen, and maybe we can open up a bit of a conversation about where do you see the Brexit process going now?
I'm finding it quite confusing, and to be honest, the Theresa May has a vote against us, so we stay in the medical side of the EU, which we'll need for certain medicines and to do chemotherapy. We get a lot of our radioactive stuff from Europe, I believe.
Right.
So they are seeming to be cherry picking. It seems a bit bizarre, really. And
Yeah.
when they're saying that she's failed at doing this, but failing to stay within Europe to be in the medical board, not having their own British medical board. And then I don't know. I find it quite confusing, to be honest with you.
But if it's now been decided tonight that we're not going to stay in the customs union, and then similar stuff last night, what have you, we are looking. The EU are not going to go for this. So basically, they're going to throw it out. And then the possibility, the hope is that we're going to end up on WTOs, no?
Can I come in here? Do you remember the first time I ever spoke to you? That's exactly what I said was happening, that this is a pantomime, because there's no way the EU are going to accept any of this. It'll get rejected. Theresa May will say, I tried to be as Remain as I could, guys. They said no. I guess we'll just have to do WTO. Which, by the way, is how we trade with the rest of the world.
You can't tell me that's what Theresa May wanted. She's a Bilderberger, for God's sake. She doesn't want us to leave the EU in any way, shape or form.
Theresa May doesn't want anything. She's not allowed to want things. She's sold out to too many people, and it's what they want that she has to do.
Yeah, which is to stay in the EU and basically to completely, siphon off our wealth to them.
But yes, thanks to you Anglo-Saxons and your Witan, that old thing that you used to choose the kings, that's evolved into a parliament, and it works really well. It stops stuff like that from happening. The last 2 days in parliament, I have never been more proud of British democracy. To watch these people, they were so arrogant, like, 75% of us want to stay in a customs union. All right then. Cool, that's a lot of phone calls I've got to do then, reminding you what voters wanted in your constituencies. But it's okay, I got the time. And then when they went through the voting lobby, what happened? And do you know what the Remainers did? They were trying to block up the voting lobbies to try and get the votes suspended. They tried every single tactic they could to try and stop this from happening, because they honestly thought that they were going to be able to scupper Brexit because they were all pro-Remain. And then they're all looking at each other like, how has this happened? We were all on the same side. There's only Rees Mogg and his friends.
Vince and the Farron bloke, they didn't even bother turning up for the vote yesterday, did they? Farron was talking about how he hates gay people or something.
It's so funny as well because it lost by 3 votes and 4 Lib Dems didn't turn up. So they would have won. If the 4 Lib Dems turned up, the Remainers would have won.
Okay. Surely what they're going to do, it seems to me, is they're going to say, we're not ready, we're not prepared. The civil service has basically done bugger all for the last 2 years, and we're not prepared, and therefore we've got to extend the deadline. Ooh, no, that's what's going to happen. They're going to try and extend it beyond the 29th. What is it? 29th of March. No? Isn't that what's going to happen? Ben? Can you hear me? I don't know. It's gone. Anyway, take another couple of comments. Stav, ask Ben, why does he think there are only 40 mosques in the whole of Wales? Okay, all right. You're Stav. That was you on DLive as well. You're moonlighting. Thomas White, the best thing to advise any member of the Labour Party to do is to leave the party and find a job. Thomas White, if the truth was known, every MP in the UK should be behind bars. And Paul Rees-Ham says, apparently Obama has run off to Kenya. And he is. Yeah, he's in Kenya at the moment. I understand. Maybe he is worried that they're about to make some arrests. I do wonder if what Trump did yesterday That was a massive change. That was a huge, huge thing for a US president to do. It seems to me that he would only do that if it was a preface to something even bigger, i.e. VIP arrests. Oh, look at that. Recombobulating discombobulators, says my Discord client. So apparently Discord, for some reason, has decided to, I don't know, restart or something? Oh, blimey, I don't know. I tell you what, we get it all on here, don't we? We get it all on here. I suppose I'll let it continue to do its recombobulating discombobulators if it likes for a minute, and I'll go through another couple of news stories. They can't hear me clearly. So anyway, all right. Let's see what else is going on. Yeah, that's that. Okay, that's kind of old news now. Deselector. Remainers.
See, this is the very sad thing now.
Remainers demand that Kate Hoey, God bless her cotton socks, is axed for backing Brexit. Just imagine if we axed every Ramona in the government that was not fulfilling or trying to fulfill the wishes of the British people. Wouldn't that be brilliant? It might actually be a good trend to start if they did take away the whip from Kate Hoey. You never know. It might backfire on them. Let's have a listen to Kate, because she's a cool girl. Let's see what she says.
See, this is the very sad thing now, that we've got into the situation where you're not allowed to have views or opinions without being absolutely railed as being a, right, extreme right wing. But a lot of, I see my constituents daily. A lot of these tweets and so on are from what I call activists and people who are not even in the Labour Party. But the reality is that a lot of inverted commas, ordinary people in Vauxhall just want us to leave, and those who did vote to leave in Vauxhall, remember, a third of people in Vauxhall voted to leave. They want us to get on with it too.
The other 2/3 didn't.
Yes, but
they're going to have a trigger ballot apparently in your constituency, Labour Party,
they don't even need to do that.
Deselect you.
Well, they have to make the National Party will make decisions in all the reselections. I've always said that I'm very happy to be, to have. I don't think trigger ballots are the right way. I think every member should automatically have a vote on whether they want to have their MP reselected. I don't think it should be a matter of so many majority of wards deciding. I think every member should. So I'm very happy and relaxed about that.
Okay, so Labour MP Kate Hoey has been hit by demands for her to be axed after being one of 3 Labour MPs to vote with the government on a crucial amendment last night. The pro-Brexit MP was photographed speaking alongside Labour MP Frank Field, good guy, to the European Research Group and recently resigned Brexit Minister Steve Baker as well. No, hold on a sec. He's not Labour. Her constituency official Twitter account at Vauxhall Labour retweeted the photo with 6 sad face emojis. And by the way, Discord is still rebooting. And I'll try and get these guys back. The MP for Vauxhall is one of the Miss Hoey, Frank Field, and Graham Stringer. This is the third one. Voted on amendment that will ensure the UK is out of the EU's VAT regime. It's very funny actually what they did, wasn't it? Basically, we'll collect your VAT for you, EU, if you collect ours for us. Vauxhall Labour's Twitter bio, he's a clever man, is Moggy, I tell you. Vauxhall Labour's Twitter bio specifically states it is fiercely pro-EU, and Ms. Hoey's vote directly contradicts this and defies the Labour Party leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Oh, really? Well, we don't really know what he believes, do we? Because he never talks about it. Many on Twitter are appalled at her actions. And then you get a whole bunch of folks saying stuff like that. Let's see what else is going on. Italy, finally, and oh dear, no, I don't want that. Yeah, Discord is still doing it. Oh dear, update failed. Oh, blimey. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get Discord back, because I've got so much going up the pipe with these simulcasts going to DLive, Fascist Bot, and YouPown that I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get Discord back. But it is checking for updates, so fingers crossed I'll get Ben back and whoever wants to call in on Discord. It is an extended show tonight. Italy finally wakes up to Brexit. Actually, this is a good plug, yeah. I'll tell you, because the bottom line is I need a fatter pipe, yeah, without wanting to get all rude about it. The fact is that I need more bandwidth going up because we've got to get the message out. We can't just rely on one or two networks. We certainly can't rely on Facebook. Ben told you about the kind of problems he's had. I can tell you that when the new algorithm came in, my audience for this show went down to about 5% of the audience that it was at the beginning of January, as soon as they changed their algorithm. And in fact, Mark Zuckerberg, I read a story the other day, and he admitted, I think it might have been in his Senate testimony or something, he admitted that they do cap sites to by 90%. He said 90% of your audience is gone when they cap you, when they limit you. And that's exactly what's going on with this show, by the way, which is, guess what? One of the reasons why I don't particularly like Fascist Bot. I don't, you know what? We prefer free speech. We voted for Brexit, you bastard! Zuckerberg! We voted for Brexit. This is fair enough, this show, yeah? It has the democratic consensus. So bugger off and stop messing us around! Okay. Anyway, yeah, and if you can help me also to increase the upload capacity on my rig here, that would be fantastic. And the way to do that is I need more bandwidth. I need some money, frankly, and I do run on fumes. And so if you can help me out, please do. PayPal.me/Brexit if you care about free speech. And if you're paying the BBC, for example, don't! We must not be paying for propaganda, yeah? Why pay for propaganda? Why pay for them to put a bunch of morons around a panel with maybe one lever? Every time, guaranteed. They are changing slightly, yeah, they're changing ever so slightly. They now have these morons that pretend that they're levers, and that's the way they try to justify it, like they did on Question Time last week. But the bottom line we know is that that's a complete moron organization, the Brussels Broadcasting Corporation, the Boys Buggering Club, whatever it's called today. And we can't be supporting that. And if you really want to flick the finger at the British establishment, the people that are behind the divide rule, they're not even British, actually. It's above that, isn't it? These transnationalists, and they are like a bunch of trannies, I don't know. If you want to flick the finger at them, the best way to do it is to cut the tongue from the snake. Go for the BBC. Go for the BBC. Absolutely scare them. They don't like it about them. That's the best way to flick the finger at the establishment, I'll tell you. Anyway. Italy finally wakes up to Brexit as officials admit EU black hole to impact 800,000 farms. Almost 1 million Italian farmers could be affected by a no-deal Brexit, with many fearing sales of Italian-made products and food would be cut by a black hole, restricting free trade between the two countries. Oh, wow, my God, they're quick on the uptake, aren't they? Roberto Moncalvo, president of Italian farming union Coldiretti, told the Italian National Assembly yesterday the UK's exit from the EU in March 2019 would weaken Italy's farming industry and export trade. Which actually makes you think, you know what, but by saving this kind of money that we're giving to this lot, we're hopefully going to be able to use it at home. But the president of the union warned Italian agriculture can't pay the price of Brexit. They fear an estimated cut of 2.7 billion euros to the budget of the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, something which could heavily impact 800,000 Italian farms. Bring it on! Bring it on, yeah? Bring it on. Let's be a bit more fair and stop being used as a cash cow for the EU, not for Europe, for the EU nation states. Mr. Moncalvo said Brexit without a trade agreement would risk the country's ability to face key challenges for the country and for the EU itself, from climate change to, thank goodness, wonderful news. Okay. On a
more general point,
still having a problem here. Still having a problem with Discord. This is a pity. Let me shut it down. I've already shut it down and restarted it, but I'm going to try it again. Let me just reboot it, and I'll read another couple of stories out or whatever whilst this is checking for updates. Why can't I decide when the maybe I need to go into the settings. It might be my fault. Maybe I need to go into the settings and say do not automatically update. There you go. There's the lesson. Whole damn thing needs to be blown up. Churchill's grandson, oh God, Nick Soames, demands Brexit is restarted. And he's a bloody moron. Churchill's grandson and Conservative MP Nick Soames has demanded that Brexit be blown up and started all over again to maintain the trust of the people in a fiery parliamentary rant. Well, Nick Soames, I want the World Cup replayed because I'm not pleased that we didn't win. You moron. I want another general election because I didn't like the result. Absolutely ridiculous. It's called democracy, yeah? Have a seance with your grandfather and ask him about it. During a debate on Tuesday in the House of Commons, Conservative MP Nicholas Twathead said Brexit should be started again in order for the country to maintain its integrity and trust of the people. What about trust of you lot? The Conservative MP for Mid-Sussex said, one of the great glories of this sadly now diminished country was our electoral and democratic system. This example today is gross. You're gross. Have you ever looked in a mirror? If we're going to maintain the integrity and trust of the voting public, the whole damn thing needs to be blown up. You need to be blown up. Actually, you look as though you already have been. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. These people, where do they get them? For God's sake, I tell you. Right, okay, let's have a look at this. This is interesting. Breaking news coming out of RT. Trump, NATO meeting great. Putin meeting even better. Everything else, fake news. Okay, let's see RT's take on this, which is an interesting angle on it. He may have been called an ally betraying Putin-loving traitor by the US liberal media, but Donald Trump is not making any apologies after his European tour that culminated in groundbreaking talks with the Russian president. While I had a great meeting with NATO, raising vast amounts of money, I had an even better meeting with Vladimir Putin of Russia. Sadly, it is not being reported that way. The fake news is going crazy, Trump tweeted on Tuesday. In a message 20 minutes previously, the US president said the mainstream media was not reporting the extra funding commitments he secured from other members of the alliance to bolster collective defense. I had a great meeting with NATO. They have paid $33 billion more and will pay hundreds of billions of dollars more in the future. Only because of me. He is right. However narcissistic he is, he's right. NATO was weak, but now it is strong again. Bad for Russia. The media only says I was rude to leaders. Never mentions the money. Tweeted Trump. I'll tell you what, he is priceless. Trump had also been complimentary about his face-to-face talks with Vladimir Putin, during which the American leader appeared satisfied with the Russian president's assurances that the Kremlin did not meddle in the 2016 US election. The US president also praised military cooperation between the two countries and vowed to better relations that he accused his predecessors of letting lapse. A productive dialogue is not only good for the United States and good for Russia, but I know my accent's crap, yeah, but it is good for the world, Trump wrote later on Monday. Not everyone had agreed. Former CIA director, stroke mass murderer turned media pundit, called the meeting was nothing short of treasonous. I think that's Brennan they're talking about there. Whilst MSNBC called the afternoon in Helsinki the worst moment in US foreign policy history that does not directly involve a war or another act of violence. To pick two voices out of hundreds that came out with near identical nonsense. Right, okay, so that's what's going on there. They're also reporting the US trade war could cost global economy 430 million. Hold on, was that pounds? Dollars, IMF warns. Telegraph tonight, May avoids defeat, and I'm not going to get Discord back by the looks of it, I'm afraid. It's going to retry in 19 seconds or something. Update failed again. It's because pipe ain't big enough, basically. But anyway, May avoids, according to Buildergraph, defeat over key customs union amendment as 4 Labour rebels votes prove crucial. Let's see. That's one of their premium stories. I think we've got the gist of that anyway, and it's guess what? Oh, Mark Carney's back on it with Project Fear. No deal Brexit would leave EU worse off than UK. Actually, hold on a sec. At last. Looking at it from an honest angle, Mark Carney, why weren't you saying this during the referendum campaign? No deal Brexit would leave EU worse off than UK amid big consequences for all. Yes, that's more honest. Yes. Do you want to trade or not? It's perfectly simple. Guess what the people do? Bugger the politician middlemen. The European Union will come off worse in a no-deal Brexit, Mark Carney told MPs, as another chaotic day in Parliament tipped Britain closer to a scenario he said would have big economic consequences at home. The governor of the Bank of England warned that the negative consequences on the continent of failure to agree terms would be cold comfort for Britain, as the city would effectively be cut off from EU. Mr. Carney gave evidence to the Treasury Select Committee, chaired by leading Remain rebel Nicky Moron, that the consequence on the continent of no deal would be extreme fragmentation of the European capital market. So says the ex-Goldman Sachs bloke. See what the Times are piping on about. Their angle, ministers in last-ditch attempt to avert Remainer trade rebellion. They should have updated that by now, I would have thought. Here we go. Prime Minister survives knife-edge Brexit customs vote. Let's see what the Times' angle on this is. Theresa May survived a knife-edge vote on Brexit by just 6 votes tonight after a bitter day of recriminations in the Commons during... Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, Discord's back. Discord is back. Yay. Hold on, people. This is promising. This is promising. We might have a show here. Whoa. Hey. And everyone's gone. Right. Okay. Discord is back, people. If you want to call in, guv.li/rant. And if you're watching, Benjamin, please do call in, sir, and we can carry on with our chat. I can carry on for a bit longer. We can make up a bit of time, what have you. Excuse me. Theresa May survived a knife-edge vote on Brexit by just 6 votes tonight after a bitter day of recriminations in the Commons, during which Tory rebels warned they could topple her. 4 Labour Brexiteers sided with the government to deliver victory for the Prime Minister over a rebel amendment that would have forced her to enter into a customs union if she did not come up with an alternative customs plan for frictionless trade by mid-January. My word, I tell you what, these votes are so tight. They are so tight. When you consider the will of the British people, unbelievable. But at least they're going our way at the moment. Moments earlier, the Prime Minister lost a Brexit vote as MPs voted for continued UK involvement in the EU's regulatory system for medicines. So actually, that's all pretty good. But they're just going to chuck it out, the EU, aren't they? They're going to chuck it out. Oh yeah, it seems to me. It doesn't seem to me that there's any real benefit for them. Look, there's a mosquito there. I'm going to kill that bastard and it'll reincarnate as a bloody career politician, I'll tell you. Anyway, the Groniad, Barack Obama, former US president, criticizes strongman politics in coded attack on Trump. Yeah, that's the guy that destroyed Libya. Brexit, May faces defeat as Labour... Okay, this is old. That's probably updated now. Here we go. may seize off rebellion as customs union amendment is defeated. Maybe I should look at some Guardian comments just so we can have a bit of a chuckle. And look at that. Science. 12 new moons orbiting Jupiter found, with one on a collision course. You know what? If we sent Nicholas Soames up there, they could have 13. I hate to think what he'd look like if he did a Mooney. Right, okay. Yeah, this is the Guardian's take on tonight. This is obviously the biggest story, so I'm trying to approach it from a few different angles. Narrow Commons win for government follows earlier loss on medicines regulation. Theresa May has seen off a damaging Commons rebellion as Tory Remainers narrowly lost a long-awaited vote on the customs union. This is absolutely, you know what? Bugger. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Right, okay. And yes, here's one for the Ramonas. Right. The Prime Minister avoided all-out Tory civil war and the wrath of Eurosceptic wing of the party less than 24 hours after she capitulated to concessions that they believed had killed off her Chequers plan. It's dead, isn't it? It's dead now. MPs voted 307 to 301. 307 to 301 to overturn an amendment to the trade bill under which Britain would be forced to join a customs union with the EU if no agreement were reached on frictionless trade by 21st of January 2019. It seems to me that this is awesome. I'm going to take some of your comments now and see what you got to say about this. And if anybody does want to call in, guv.li/rant, please do. Ben, if you're still watching, I don't know what you're doing, mate. Then come back. I apologize. It was a big old problem with my software. And if anybody wants to call in, yeah, sure. Thomas White, staying in the EU for medical will lead to the NHS going private. That's interesting, isn't it? There's a show there. There's a show there alone, isn't there? I don't know. Maybe we'll get Charlotte Jameson come in and have a chat about that. Maybe we get one or two folks that are in the nursing profession, what have you, in maybe in the NHS, to discuss that as well. Oh, hold on. Oh, is it letting me connect? Yeah, it's letting me connect. I've got Benjamin back. Let's see if I can pull.
Oh, hello.
Can I pull Benjamin in? Ben?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
That's weird, I'll tell you.
In Parliament,
everything's going very odd. Very odd. Play me that clip that you found with them all cheering earlier.
Oh well, I'm just in the middle of recording the. I was getting some work done whilst you guys were.
We had a problem here, but Discord decided to update itself, so that's what happened there. Took a while.
Oh, hang on. I'm just going to post something in the Discord here. Can I post pictures?
Can you? Yeah, you can. You can post pictures, and I can actually show them on the screen as well. If as long as it's not Nicholas Soames doing a Mooney whilst he's orbiting Jupiter, that's fine.
No,
right.
Definitely not.
Okay, Helen Lasky-Smith. Ollie, we've been saying this all the time. Merkel admitted that she wanted our money and not us ages ago. I can't remember her actually saying that, but that's definitely the practice. Joe Blogs, hey Joe, John. The mainstream are not reporting a lot of things, like the thousands of paedophile arrests since Trump got into office. And I don't know if anybody heard, Dr. Chris Boozy popped in last night, was having a chat. And one of the things he said, he always comes out with some fascinating stuff, does Chris. And one of the things he said was that Trump has locked up more paedophiles in 18 months than had his presidential predecessors in the equivalent of 4 administrations, 4 terms, 4 presidential terms. In half a presidential term, he has locked up more paedophiles. That's what Chris Boozy said anyway last night. And I've been following the kind of the paedophile ring type, Trump kind of, or rather the locking them up and trying to, purge the country of these of this depravity. And I have to say, it does look as though he's been very, very active on that, and I'm really looking forward to him getting into Pizzagate. And do wonder if the kind of comments that he made yesterday are a precursor to that. Helen also says Sadiq Khan is thinking of making his own political party here in the UK. The Sharia Party. Do it, Sadiq. Do it, mate. It's great. That'll help us. For that, thank you. Carl Millenge, my Discord is playing up as well. I guess maybe Discord update everybody's client at the same time. I don't know. Paul Rees-Ham says the EU will implode. Yes, Paul. Thomas White, irrespective of Brexit, won't it? But, I mean, you know what? Sharing is caring. Let's just give it a bit of a hand. Give it a hand. Put it out of its misery, for God's sake. Let's help the rest of Europe as well. One day, Europe will be grateful. I'll tell you that. Thomas White, people all need to try and get on every live TV show. Once in, let the world know just what is going on with the corruption of the police force and all MPs. And he also says, ask me, Ollie, did you get the video I sent you regarding running your own media TV show? And even get on people's TV if you let them know what channel you would be on. If not, I think I've still got it. Thomas, please resend it. And a lot of people have messaged me over the course of the last week or so, and I haven't got back to them yet. And I do apologize, but I will endeavor to be better. Chaos. Right. Ollie, we didn't vote Brexit. We voted leave. Maureen. Yeah. Sure. Fair enough. Yeah, we did. We voted to leave the European Union. You're correct. But, to me, it's exactly the same thing. I define Brexit as leave. Leave the European Union. Those four things. That, to me, is Brexit. But I hear what you say. And she also says, that's exactly what's going to happen. They will say, we need more time. Yeah, I think so. I think that's what they're going to do. Yeah, well, I know that's what they're going to do. It's what they're going to do. They are now going to try and extend from the 29th of March, 2019, probably by another 2 years. I wouldn't be surprised. I would have thought it would be no less than that anyway. Ben, can you hear me, mate? Oh, he's gone. He's just gone. He's literally just gone. Thomas White, they're worried about voting so they don't get charged with treason. Yeah, I'll tell you, we need to bring hanging back. Tony Blair changed the law, didn't he? So that treason is no longer a hangable offence. We need to change that. We need to backdate it. And we need to use it. Thomas White, they're worried about voting so they don't get charged with treason. Quite right, Thomas. Josephine Claremont. Hello, Josephine. There's a new name to me. Good evening. Brexit is already dead. Oh, Josephine, you're very, very negative, my dear. Well, still going to be positive over here. Have we got a choice? Maureen Smith, that's exactly what's going on. I haven't seen any more time. Thomas White, that's to make the NHS private. Our cops are being made private under PESCO. I think it's time to do another show on PESCO now. Josephine Claremont also says all of that is irrelevant because we're not getting out, according to Mrs. May and her cohorts. Yeah. She did say there would be no Brexit the other day if we didn't go along with the Chequers plan, didn't she? It's just more Project Fear. There's no way we could agree as a nation, as an individual, to this kind of fudge of Chequers. Even bloody Mandelson, even the likes of him was saying that it is bad for the country. Although he could have been saying that for cynical reasons. But nonetheless, I mean, we just got to be out, and keep pushing our case and what have you. Chelsea, Clinton, says Maureen Smith. Yes, Chelsea, that's right. She's about the size of Chelsea. Thomas White says, but being called a racist in the UK, you have to be white. Yeah, apparently so. And Patrick Burke. Hey, Patrick, a new name to me again. I'm proud to be Gammon. Aye. So they're allowed to call us Gammon, yeah. But you put up a picture of Sadiq Khan getting whatnotted up the butt by a pig, And that's supposed to be racist. So that they can be racist towards us, but we can't be racist towards them. They can disrespect our culturally best friends over the pond, but we're not allowed to say you're out of order, mate. And by the way, it's about time you learn our culture and integrated. And no, it ain't part and parcel. Blitz spirit, mate. We don't put up with that crap on it in our capital. Oh my God! I'll tell you what. If that guy gets voted in for a second term as London Mayor, M-A-R-E. Jesus, what does it say about London? Once we've got out of the EU, once we've got our sovereignty back, we need to take London back. We need to take back. Make sure that we have integration or dismissal. Integrate. Ben, can you hear me?
Oh, hello. Yes, I'm back.
We've had problems with Discord tonight.
Just trying to upload a file that shows you, that topic of conversation I was just talking about.
Go on, which one?
I got this, the one I was talking about just before everything went flat.
Right.
It's very strange that when I posted about the destruction of Palestinian settlements from Parliament to the UK, which is a Facebook feed that I put out. So, Nye Bevan News is for left-leaning content.
Got him!
There's a lot of other stuff that goes on in Parliament, so I try and cover that too. And after I posted about the recent destruction of Palestinian settlements, that page, I couldn't upload anything on it for about a week afterwards. My videos would get to about 8% and then they wouldn't upload.
Yes.
And then I got all of the other editors and all of the other pages I'm connected to try and upload anything at all. And none of the pages that I was connected to could upload anything. All of the videos that all of them tried to upload would get to 8% on Facebook, and then it would freeze. Very strange. Very strange. I mean, it's just pure coincidence, I'm sure. Nothing to do with anything at all.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Pure, just a coincidence.
It's very strange as well.
Do you believe in coincidence?
The people in the Labour Party who I'm on the opposite side of, they're the ones who tried to introduce a £25 poll tax for people to vote for Jeremy Corbyn when Owen Smith challenged him. And so I started collecting a lot of money. I said to people, there might be an unexpected £25 bill this week. So if you need help paying that, get in touch and I'll see if I can sort you out. And if you happen to have a spare £25, send it in and I'll make sure someone who needs it gets it. And that's another thing that I did. Ever since then, I've had a lot of trouble with online resources at particular junctures. So whenever there's something very important going on in Parliament, it'll be about 2 hours before I can upload anything. So it'll be 2 hours after the fact that I can upload it. Whereas I used to be the one who was first in the UK putting this stuff on social media. It made it so that I couldn't be first anymore. Another thing that happened was they tried purging lots of people from the Labour Party, and they would and they would use people's social media feeds to try and find actionable material against them to give an excuse to kick them out of the Labour Party. So I disseminated a subject access request under the Data Protection Act. I drafted the email, and then I found out what the private email of the legal department with the Labour Party was and published it with the subject access request and said, anybody who feels like the Labour Party is unfairly using their data, send this information in and you'll flood the Labour Party headquarters with data protection requests. Now, what this means is that as a data holder, the Labour Party is legally obliged to process those requests before it does any internal administration, like purging its own members. And so it stopped the Labour Party from purging its membership base so that it could rig the leadership election. So they tried to rig the vote twice, and I stopped them twice. And ever since doing those things, and then the other stuff around the general election, I'm pretty much marked. So when I'm at my grandmother's house now, as soon as I come here, her internet goes weird. If I go to my friend's house to use their internet goes weird. Excuse the noise. I recently got put into temporary accommodation. And as soon as I was put in the temporary accommodation, their internet went weird. And so you've got to understand, for the past 3 years, I'm like a I'm like a digital black hole, basically. And my friends know that if I come around their house to work, it's going to seriously affect their ability to use their own internet. So it's for me, there's too many of these supposedly coincidental occurrences. And I've sent the screenshot of what I was saying earlier about Parliament Today UK. I've actually sent that to your man there who still can't get in. Strange.
Carl.
Did he tell you what happened? Did he tell you what happened when so as soon as I saved the Daily Chaos, the mobile number, I don't want to dox anyone or release their name publicly, but there's a person who I speak to on my private phone.
Yeah.
As soon as I saved their name into my phone under their number, they started receiving loads and loads of blank multimedia text messages from me.
Really?
But I wasn't sending them. There was a point where my phone was switched off a couple of days ago, and yet he was having missed calls from me, and my phone was switched off, and he was like, no, I could hear. There were kids running around and stuff. I was at a restaurant that was like a dog-friendly, kid-friendly restaurant, because loads of people don't like having dogs and kids in their restaurant. And I was there with my friend, and we were having a meal, and he could hear everything, but my phone was switched off because I only had 9% battery and I was saving it.
Okay,
so
I've got to. Okay, look. Okay. Yes, we're getting trolled and all that. I want to change tack because we haven't got that much time left, and I did want to ask you one or two questions about the Labour Party, and I think that Thomas White leads into the conversation very, very well with a suggestion: the Labour Party should have a delete button on it. Now, you who run Nye Bevan News and Jason Tyler, there you go, there's a clue. This is Benjamin Jenkins from Nye Bevan News, in case anybody was wondering. He's with me tonight. You tell me, please, sir, with a name like that, post clause 4, how could you have had any sympathy whatsoever for the Labour Party until perhaps the election with a name like yours of Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, that's when I started. My first foray into politics was to organise protests against the Iraq War. And I went around collecting money to hire buses to pick people up from their schools and their colleges to take them, first of all, to a protest in Swansea, where I organised for groups of people to find every zebra crossing in the city and cross that zebra crossing all day. Every single place where there were traffic lights, cross the traffic lights all day, because Swansea's a big Labour town. And then I organised protests against the one in February in central London, and I helped bring up the Welsh contingent to that. That was my first foray into politics, and that's when I discovered who the Socialist Worker Party were, and they're the sort of people who turn up at protests that other people organise, give out all of their placards and stuff, and then claim credit for the protest. After there were about 2 million of us.
So you're a traditionalist with a name like that. You're a traditionalist Labour man, yeah? What's it called? A hard-boiled socialist or whatever.
Yes, but I think socialism, right? So capitalism's like the wind, right? And socialism's like a sail. But whereas a lot of socialists think the capitalism and socialism is oppositional, and that somehow we're going to replace capitalism with socialism, which I don't prescribe to that view. I think it's naive. I think what you need to do is a proper taxation, and what you do is you use the sail of socialism to harness the wind of capitalism and use it to drive your country or your NHS or whichever into the right direction and to make sure people are provided for. I've got no problem with people doing well for themselves, none whatsoever, as provided they chip in and pay taxes. I also find the idea of taking half of what someone earns off them particularly unpalatable. I don't think income tax is the route through which
we take a lot more than that, one way and another.
No, I know. When with all the hypothecated taxes, and when you think of all the taxes and all of the things that you spend and stuff, this isn't, it's not fair. I actually wouldn't. I'm not comfortable with an income tax that goes above 30%. I think we've got a massive amount of thanks to the EU, we have a massive amount of corporation tax which goes uncollected, It's about 120 billion pound a year corporation tax bill, which the hard-working, in inverted commas, shopkeepers of Great Britain have to subsidise by having their income tax racked up decade after decade after decade, and it's simply unfair.
Yes.
It's
actually fascism, isn't it?
Yes, that is fascism. Yeah, I wouldn't have a monarchy if I was forming a political system from the ground up. But we've always had pendragons on these islands since before the Anglo-Saxons turned up.
Yeah, we've got some of them here. We've got some of them watching, listening. Go on.
When you add in the idea of the Anglo-Saxon witan to that sort of made the fusion, which created the democracy that we have today, which is by far and away, it's called the mother of parliaments for a reason. And we've got by far and away the best political system. It's the more stable. So I'm actually a royalist. I'm pro-military. I think I would actually have, for unemployed people, I was unemployed for a long time when I was in my youth, lost. And I think I would have done me a lot of good if I hadn't been able to create any other options for myself. It would have done me a lot of good if the only thing I don't want to use the word forced, but I guess I'm going to have to forced to join up and go, look, there's nothing for you to do. So you're just going to have to join the army until you find something to do, because at least that'll impose some discipline on your life.
Or maybe as an alternative civic duty, if not.
Yes, anything like that. Yes. So we could, we've got a massively aging population. At some point, we're going to have to come up with a solution to that, and one of the solutions is going to have to be that people are going to have to start. I would have a universal basic income, and as part of that universal basic income, people who don't have a job will have certain responsibilities that they will have to fulfill, whether that be so for example, if you've got an elderly person on your street, to get your dole, you've got to spend 10 hours with that elderly person. You've got to do their bins for them, make sure their food's cooked, and generally assist the carers that are going in and out of the house, so that the carers aren't doing everything. They're concentrating on their medical tasks and the ablutions and making sure that they're our aged people are held in a dignified manner. And then, so the other tasks, which they all do, which is like cooking, cleaning, and all the rest of it, get taken care of. And one of the things we're going to have to face as a society is that that's a big crunch. That people say it's coming. I would say it's already come.
What, universal basic income or what?
What's
coming?
The thing with the aging population. Universal basic income is a crunch that's come, and so is the thing with the aging population. And a big problem that the baby boomers have got, though, is that the golden generation defeated the Nazis and built the welfare state out of the rubble, right? And the modern Britain.
I'm not sure we did actually, but anyway, carry on.
No, the golden generation, I mean. Whereas the baby boomers have sort of sold all that stuff off, largely to themselves.
Yes.
So that they can rent it out to my generation at an inflated price.
That's right.
So when you look at things like
it's absolutely disgusting,
housing and all the rest of it, there is a big problem coming up in the future where at some point my generation is going to be in charge of the baby boomers' life support switch. And the way they've treated my generation, they shouldn't be surprised if it's Soylent Green for them. You know what I mean? Because it's not going to end well. And so if we don't start meshing and sewing these fraying bits of our society back together, we're going to wake up one day and Margaret Thatcher's prediction is going to come true, and there will be no such thing as society. And some would argue that with the gated communities we've got, with the ethnic balkanization that's gone on in our cities, with what they call it white flight that's happened, the lack of integration, some would say that the no such thing as society thing has already happened. Now, I'm not a doom monger. I think all of these things are fixable or reversible. But if we are going to fix and reverse them, we're going to need to do something about all of these things very soon. I just don't see how that can be done without a certain amount of political philosophy behind it, because human beings are inherently selfish. They will look after themselves first, and then they will look after their family, and then they will look after their community. And there is going to have to come a time where we start saying to people, yeah, all of those things are sort of the same boat now, which is, the World War II mentality, where in the phony war, in the first couple of years of the war, everybody thought, oh, well, this isn't even a real war. Or the first couple of months, of the war, this isn't even a real war.
Yes.
But then by 1941, when we were standing alone against the Nazis, every single bit of our society was retrofitted and geared up to one task, which was keeping us all alive and making sure we survive. And we're going to need to get back into that headspace if we're going to have any chance, especially after Brexit, which is why the whole narrative of what the Remainers are doing is so fundamentally destructive. Because as Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided against itself will not stand. Okay, and they won't win a civil war. And at any other point in British history, the way they've been acting, we would be at civil war, and their heads would be on spikes right now. And I have literally started saying this to Remainers. Every November 5th, we have a Burn a Catholic Day to remind everybody what happened to the last guy who tried to take our democracy away from us and sell us out to the continent. And you guys are lining yourselves up to be the Guy Fawkes of the 21st century. And I am very worried about what's going to happen to you, because you've got no chance of winning this fight. And you are making it very, very easy for people to turn on you in a not very forgiving way. Like what I was saying to you earlier about if they'd gotten with the programme and said, right, we're all Brexiteers now, let's do the best of it. People on our side who had won, British people are magnanimous in victory. You see it in every sporting event. You see it with the English. When they lost to the Croatians, they were all just going, well, fair play to Croatia, man. They I don't know how they won, but they managed. And the English players were saying that stuff before making their excuses. And that's a very important part of not just English, but British culture, which is to acknowledge the reality of what happened. And not delude yourself that you lost, because you, like every other nation, like they will make excuses that we were cheated by the ref, we were done by this, we were done by that. Now I can remember when Frank Lampard scored a screamer, and if we'd had VAR, England would have gone through. And the English never talk about that, because to them they lost. And yeah, it was unfair. Okay, the referee made a bad decision, and you didn't get the rub of the green. We literally come up with turns of phrases for this stuff, so that we can explain to ourselves that life is hard. You're not always going to get things your own way, but you should never give up and you should keep on trying. And it's an important mentality. And what I've
That's been lost, though, hasn't it, Ben? That's a very important point, and that's been lost, and that's why the youth of today are so self-entitled. No?
Well, some of the youth of today, but many of the youth of today, they're desperate for their identity. And that's what the rise of the alt-right signifies. That's what the rise of white identitarianism signifies. Yeah. There are a lot of young people who are becoming Christians. And all of this is a sign that, people need their identity. And the more other identities and cultures you bring into our melting pot society, and we have always been a bit of a melting pot ever since before the Romans. Even when the Celts were here, there were 22 different tribes of Celts. And the ones at the very south couldn't speak the same form of Welsh as the ones at the very north. They could barely understand each other. So, we have got a serious advantage over the rest of the world in that we've got 2,000 years worth of experience of getting along with people who might not necessarily be similar to us. Whereas the rest of the world, Germany is German. The Scandinavian countries are Scandinavian. And it's very hard for them to engage with the rest of the world. Whereas in Britain, we've had an empire since Queen Elizabeth I. we've had, we owned large swathes of the continent in the 12th and 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries, large bits of France. And so we've always had this sort of muddling through mentality that, okay, we're all on the island. That's the thing that connects us. And the problem with the modern era is that a lot of the new people who've been brought in have not been inculcated and brought into the fold the way the Huguenots were, the way the Normans were, the way the Indians were, the Bengalis, the Hindus. All of those communities, they came in and they were taught, right? They might have been spat on a lot of the times, but over the years, they became an integral and fundamental part of the fabric of our society. And yet, from about 1990 onwards, we did just abandon that habit. And what we're seeing in the modern era is the fruit of that. And I think once we get past that hard stage, we're going to get back to the ability to be a country again. And so I'm not without hope. I think I was very hopeful when Brexit happened. I celebrated, and I thought it was one of the best things that had ever happened in my life. No, it was the best thing that had ever happened in my life. And I was so proud of everybody who, against all of the wishes of all of the so-called experts said, well, I would rather be a poor king than a rich slave.
Well
Thanks.
said.
And I just thought I was so proud of everybody for doing it, and I'm still very proud of them. And then that sort of weaned off. And then in the last couple of days, watching Parliament have this existential crisis within itself, where you've got 70-80% of the bodies in that room are Remainers, and they're not just Remainers, they are the hardest of hard Remainers. And watching them fail in their own house, where they think they rule the roost and that everything's okay and will go their way, and they can fudge things because nobody's watching. We're watching now.
Yeah, that's right. We're watching. We're watching.
Yeah,
go
right?
on.
And they
go
know
on.
that now. And then, so my clips of people in Parliament performing get more views than the BBC's clips, or indeed of their own Facebook social media feeds. And I'm just a random guy from nowhere, right? I have no right to this power, and yet I seized it. And the model that I used to seize it can be replicated and rinsed and repeated. So if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, there's nothing I can do, my advice to you would be set up a local-based news feed that concentrates on local news, provides weekly or, one daily, and then one roundup clip of what's going on in Parliament, and just pick things that interest you, and you'll start building up traction and building up traction and building up traction. And what you'll find eventually is that you're getting more traffic than your local newspaper. And then you'll find you're getting more traffic than your regional newspaper. And then you'll find you're getting more traffic than national newspapers. And then you'll realize that media is just a propaganda game. And as long as you're willing to be honest and polite, and when you do get things wrong, be honest about it and post corrections and apologize, and don't snap people down or delete them or ban them or delete their comments. You keep doing that for 3 years, and you just build an impenetrable reputation that they can't get through. Because I've been so maybe then what happened then was just a general breakdown of Discord. And maybe I am a little bit too, look, my stuff got shut down again. What a coincidence. But after 3 years of having your stuff shut down at particular junctions, when you're talking about particular things, you get a little bit savvy and wise to it. But then one thing I never do is I'd never post to Nye Bevan News, or I'm being suppressed by the Israelis, because that's one of the things that if people are suppressing you, or I'm being suppressed by the government, if people are doing that to you, they want you to play yourself out as a victim, because human beings don't like weakness. And if ever you Trump demonstrates this, Hillary Clinton demonstrates this, to a certain extent, Jeremy Corbyn demonstrates this. The people do not respond well to weakness. And if you take the punches and take the kicks and take all of it and then just get back up and carry on plowing on, those are the people that change things. And the people who stop and do what the Remainers are doing and whinge about how unfair stuff is, no one responds to that. Nobody votes for that, ever. Because human beings do not want weak people in charge of the future of their family. They would much rather pick somebody who was strong, who they knew at least would make sure that their children and their offspring and their lifestyle and all the rest of it is going to be at least defended by somebody who's got some teeth. You never, this is the thing I was trying to get across to Jeremy Corbyn's team before they blocked me from all of their forums where they discussed policy, was that if we project weakness, we are going to lose. Because one of the things that people most appreciate about Jeremy Corbyn is he's principled. Even if you disagree with him, he's not going to lie to your face to try and win your vote.
Well, he did about student fees.
Something's right.
Either that or he's bloody awful at maths.
Yes, well, and so.
Look, okay, let me ask you. Let me ask you about that then, because I mean, what do you think? What do you think of the Labour Party today? The situation that they're in, and maybe allowing for what's happened with the Blairites. Was the Blairites a hijack? Was John Smith murdered?
Oof. Any Labour leader would have won that landslide at Blair. One of the biggest myths that has been written after the Blair era is that it was only Tony who could do it. Whereas the way the political pendulum works is that it was swinging against. If Thatcher had stayed on, it would have been different. and the Tories would have held more ground. But after the Tories did that, and they slit the throat of their own, there was blood in the tank. They put a very weak man in charge. Only Neil Kinnock could have lost to John. Yeah. Only no, I'm talking about the Tories now. Only Neil Kinnock could have lost to John Major. Yeah. John Major is like a man who is, what is it? There's this comedian, Linda something. She died of cancer. She's very funny. She said, John Major, a man who looks like he escaped from the circus to become an accountant. It's just like he's got all of the charisma of a
His father was a ringmaster, wasn't he? Kinnock. Or his uncle or something was a ringmaster in a circus.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually true, but okay, cool.
Yeah, he was. I think so.
Kinnock was an absolute
Balls Major or somebody.
Disgrace. And to this day, he's a disgrace. And I was on the phone to Dennis Skinner today.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you about Dennis Skinner. Yeah, I rang up Dennis
Beast
Skinner's
of Bolsover.
parliamentary office. Yeah. I rang up Dennis Skinner's parliamentary office. And Dennis Skinner answered the phone, and that tells you everything you need to know about Dennis Skinner.
It does tell you a lot.
Dennis Skinner doesn't employ people who answer his phone for him. Those are the sorts of Labour men that and women like that, like Barbara Castle and stuff. They're the sort of people that I respect.
Yeah.
I show respect to Diane Abbott because she's my elder, and I think it's a good rule that you should show filial piety. If somebody's got seniority over you, you should show them the due deference that comes from them having to walk through the world for longer than you have. Mm-hmm. And so I do shy away from insulting people on the grounds of their age or the mistakes they make or things like that. And I also like when I don't like it when people post pictures of Theresa May gurning and stuff, and or have a go at when people say, I piss on Thatcher's grave. I don't like Margaret Thatcher. I'm no fan of Thatcher. Mm-hmm. But I think if you say stuff like that, you disrespect the people who voted for her. Mm-hmm. And if you disrespect the people who voted for her, you're basically saying to a vast majority of British people, don't vote for me. I just think it's disrespectful and stupid. Mm-hmm. That said, her legacy's horrendous. And if you want to talk about what she did, she was a terrible, terrible person. But Tony Benn informs much of my viewpoints on this. He says Margaret Thatcher was a much cleverer woman than anyone in the Labour Party was willing to give her credit for, which is exactly why they lost her for so long. Because Neil Kinnock, and this is what it's funny, but it's also very depressing. Mm-hmm. Neil Kinnock thought he was cleverer than Margaret Thatcher, and if you want to win a fight, you've got to know what you're fighting, and you've got to know where you are in the fight. You've got to know what your weaknesses are. You've got to know what the other person's weaknesses are. And if you think that you're smarter than Margaret Thatcher when you're about 1/10 of her intelligence, you're never going to defeat the woman. So Neil Kinnock the treachery started with him. Well, it started before him, actually. It started with Roy Jenkins in the 1970s. You'll see it in the debate between where you've got Dennis Skinner and Enoch Powell on one side saying, we should leave the EEC. And then you've got Roy Jenkins and some other guy who I've completely forgotten about because he's a political irrelevance on the other side. The only reason I remember Roy Jenkins is because he's a cancer on the working class. His father was a miner. His entire career was built on the backs of men from my valley, and he betrayed us completely. And that's when it started. And Dennis Skinner, interestingly, today said to me, when he went into Parliament on his first day, he was like, the Labour Party was, the Parliamentary Labour Party was right-wing even then. And he said, I don't know where they got their money from, because I know the unions backed us and all of us left-wing socialists, but we always wondered where the right-wingers got their money from. And you were saying Ted Heath got all the money from the EU. I've got a sneaking suspicion that a lot of the people who were in the Labour Party at that time were being funded by the people who were pushing for the integrated European project. And so this goes back a very long way. What we're doing here is we're trashing plans of people who are used to getting their own way. They're used to winning. They're used to being able to rig things. They thought they'd done all of the things they needed to do to make that happen again this time, and they still lost. And the same happened with Trump in the USA. And so what we're watching here is people call it the deep state, or they call it the establishment.
Yeah,
they call it the powers that be. Yeah. Some of them call it something in 3 brackets. Whatever it is, those organizations, those power brokers, they are completely losing, and they have never felt that way before. And they're probably scared.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly that's that story in the New York Times today, Ben. Soros is saying he feels that he's losing now.
Yeah, they are losing. Because if me and you are on the same side, because I'm presuming you're not a socialist, I'm presuming you're not left-wing.
No, I'm not. But I do have a socialist sort of a conscience. I'm apolitical, really.
Everybody's got a bent in them, haven't they?
Yeah, like exactly. I don't think it's as simple as being one or the other, really, Ben. I mean, I've got some bits of me which are left-wing and other bits of me which are right-wing, really.
Yeah, but the socialists think I get called a fascist every day. I get called a Trump supporter every day. I get called a Tory every day.
It is all relative, isn't it? It is all relative. Yeah. Because I mean, you said, for example, a minute ago that the Labour Party was kind of moving right wing. Well, or no, you mentioned that it was right wing or that it had gone right wing. I would say that it was relative to where it had been before, because actually the Tory Party to me is a socialist party.
Oh yeah, there's so much of the Tory Party. People say that Tony Blair was Margaret Thatcher's greatest achievement. Given the way Momentum have reacted to wanting to stay in the single market, I would say Momentum was her greatest achievement, and they don't like being told that. But so much of the established political diatribe of the New Labour project has just been completely copy and pasted into the Conservative Party, and I cannot for the life of me understand why a Tory voter would vote for the Tory Party as it is now and not vote for Jeremy Corbyn, because 80% of Tory voters want a nationalised rail industry. Of Tory voters want their NHS to be in public hands. 80% of Tory voters want their roads to be run properly. Yeah. You know, they understand that the state does have a role. Now, they also don't want to be taxed 90% income tax rates, and I think that's where the crunch comes. Which is why I try and convince.
That is a big problem, though, isn't it? Because we are very, very quick, us human beings, to label people in whatever way, whatever capacity, as opposed to, and it's just an excuse, isn't it? It's just a label, it's a kind of a smear, as opposed to talking about the policy.
Well, there is nothing that sums it up more than the reaction to Jordan Peterson from the liberal metropolitan-based left. Jordan Peterson is Jordan Peterson he's like an old school, wants to be part of the old school party of the working man. He used to actually be involved in politics with the Canadian
I don't know who he is. Who is he?
Dr. Jordan Peterson.
Sorry, excuse my ignorance.
Did you see the interview with Kathy Newman where she kept on going, so you're saying, so you're saying, so you're saying? Have you seen that?
No, I don't know that I have. And that name rings a bell. I'm trying to think who she is.
Dr. Jordan Peterson, he started off in Canada. There's this thing called Title IX. Mm-hmm. And it's basically been warped into imposing compelled speech. And the crunch issue came when transvestites wanted to force people to call them by the gender pronoun that they identify as.
Oh, right.
Which they never needed to do, because in an Anglophone system, we have this thing called politeness and not being rude. And so even if a cross-dresser or a transvestite has got a beard, and you can literally see their testicles periscoping out from the bottom of their ill-fitting dress. Right. If that person comes up to you and says, hello, my name is Susan, 99% of English speakers will call them Susan.
Yeah,
out of pure politeness. Right. Even if they find the idea of that person repugnant, if they find the politics and the philosophy of being a transvestite against their very morals. Yeah. There is just something about being an English speaker where it's like, oh, okay then, hi Susan. And so you don't need to compel speech. But there's another thing in English culture and English speaking culture, which says that if you try and tell me what to say, I will burn the whole society to the ground, rather than say what you're trying to make me say. So here's an idea, don't try and make me say things. Whereas we've had this creep now of authoritarianism. It comes from the liberal left, the Blairite wing of the Labour Party, but it comes from the Momentum wing of the Labour Party. But it also comes from the right looks at that, the authoritarian right, the governmental right looks at that and goes, well, we don't care about anyone anyway. And we don't speak publicly about our real opinions ever. We just like to run things. And so they picked up this tendency for clamping down on free speech. You can now go to jail for tweeting the wrong thing. Sadiq Khan has got a whole team of police officers who don't walk the streets. They don't stop people from stabbing each other or robbing each other.
They're all trolling us.
Troll people's social media feeds to find out if they've committed any wrong thing.
Yeah.
And in 1948, George Orwell wrote a book about this. It's quite famous. And it wasn't a manual, right? It wasn't a manual. No, it was a warning.
That's right.
And the problem is the people, the people, particularly politicians, have sort of picked it up as this, oh, we could do this. We could do this. And if you look at it, the character of that book, Winston Smith, his job, right, is to edit the news. And today, people like me, and one of the reasons I resigned from Nye Bevan News in protest when Jeremy...
hold on. Okay, hold on. Whoa. One sec. Thomas White, you're not allowed to go, because I'm going to ask 1 and 2 questions that you're going to be interested in. So, Thomas White, you have to sit there, even though you're finding this conversation extraordinarily frustrating, sir. Okay, look, I want to ask you, this Labour Party, it seems to me, is incredibly cynical, particularly the Blairite aspect, at least the Corbyn aspect, you know where you stand. And a lot of people, I imagine, including Thomas White, would say, all they want to do is bankrupt us. They, we get everybody else to pay for somebody else to vote for them and all that. And I have to admit, that is very much my thinking too, largely about if you like, the socialist aspect of the party. Not entirely, but to a large extent.
In the roundings, right.
However, that bit doesn't really concern me because it's honest about what it wants to do. What does concern me is the bit that is not honest, the Blairite wing, which pretends it's a kind of a socialist entity, but actually it's a fascist entity. It's an entity that wants globalization, that wants the EU, that is working towards global government and so on and so forth. Is that a fair assessment?
That's absolutely a fair assessment. I'm not here to defend them. My job is I'm the scalpel that's trying to cut that cancer out. And they know it too. They've come down on me.
And so then we just have to deal with Trotskyists instead.
The thing about Trotsky is, right?
Go on.
Trotsky revolutionized the Red Army. He helped make sure that the Nazis lost. He was better.
Okay. Never mind that. Let's keep it specifically on the Labour Party, because I am concerned about this Labour Party. When I hear someone like Keir Starmer at the dispatch box, and then obviously we've got this enormous disparity between him and people like a better in a way example, Hilary Benn. His father must be turning in his grave. Hilary Benn, it seems to me, is not a politician. He's a personal businessman looking out for Hilary Benn Limited.
Yeah. Right. I really don't like Hilary Benn. I hate his politics. I hate what he believes in. When he stood up and encouraged us,
he believes in things like going to war with Syria. The guy is an inciter of war. There's not a lot of difference between someone like him and someone like John McCain.
No, absolutely not. They're on the same page on about 80% of the
issues. Is that not a problem? Is that not a fundamental problem with the Labour? I mean, I don't care with the Tory Party, Labour Party, what kind of UKIP, whatever. If it is honest, if it is what it says on the tin, so that you can then make a judgment, as opposed to you vote for them and then guess what? It's Pepsi or Coke. It's always the same damn thing, guaranteed to rot your teeth.
Yes. Well, I can't defend or stick up for any of that. And
is there any hope that the Labour Party can improve that? Because it seems to me that party politics has completely failed. Whether it's, but I mean, I'm really talking about the duopoly, which I suppose includes the Lib Dems as well.
Working class men and women could flood the Labour Party and completely retrofit it. All of the institutional functions are there to do that. It's an eminently easy party to overtake, as Momentum admirably demonstrated. That could be done. The working class could take its party back again, and you could, if you got involved with your local Labour Party and were like, look, you claim to be acting for me. You use people like me on all your marketing. Yeah. People like me built this party. Yeah. And yet you're basically a Gafgar Tarquin who could just as easily be a Tory, who's in it for yourself. Yeah. But this is we have been bred and trained to disengage from politics. Mm. And after 30 years of working class men disengaging from the working class party, it isn't any surprise that party was completely hijacked by middle class liberals.
What would you say?
What would screw us all over?
What would you say, Thomas White? He hasn't gone. He obviously heard what I said. God bless him. Working class people are better off voting for UKIP. It's got a bloody good point.
Yeah, well, look. If your choice is Hillary Benn, what I would say to you with regards to UKIP is that there's a lot of people in UKIP who want to privatise your NHS, and that's not what you want. Because if you want to see how bad healthcare is for people who can't afford it, just visit poor places, visit the Rust Belt in America. But I can.
There's a lot of people in the Labour Party that want to privatise the NHS. Look at what Blair did.
It's a hard question.
Branson probably would vote Labour, wouldn't he?
Who would?
Branson.
Richard Branson?
Yeah.
Well, Richard Branson is this is what I keep saying to the Labour Party members who are pro-Remain, is that Richard Branson is funding the Stop Brexit campaign. Do you think he's doing that so that the European Union can stop people like Richard Branson from privatising our NHS? I doubt it. So why on earth are Trotskyites and so-called socialists on the same side as Richard bloody Branson? Which is why your man's question there is so hard to answer for someone like me. Look, give me 5 more years and I'll change the Labour Party into something he can vote
But
for.
right now, could you
if he's a Brexiteer,
if you were to vote Labour, would you really trust a Labour government to have office now?
Depending on the cabinet, yes.
Okay, yeah. With the front bench, with the shadow front bench, would you trust that?
Current shadow front bench? Yeah, probably. The current shadow front bench is pretty much people getting on with their jobs. The first shadow front bench, all those 172 Blairites and neoliberals who resigned, if that had been the cabinet, no, not in a month of Sundays. I would never want those people in charge of my country.
Come on. I mean, Emily Thornberry, for crying out loud, is a horrid piece of work. Look at what she said about White Van Man, and very, very cynical.
Do you know when I said to you earlier that you're allowed to say whatever you like about the English? That's the example that I think of when I say that. Look,
but they're full of that. Keir Starmer's the same. Mate. Keir Starmer would be their. God, what would he be? He'd be their.
Do you want to know something interesting about Keir Starmer?
Go on.
He was the chief prosecutor. He was the Queen's prosecutor, or whatever it is, that was in charge of the War Boys case.
That's right.
The War Boys case?
Yeah.
That
taxi driver that
gave him 4 years, 96 victims, mate.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I'm not defending these.
How could you want a government that contains creatures like this?
Well, like I said, the current.
I'm not saying the Tories are necessarily any better, by the way. Because you're a Labour man. I'm asking you. I'm giving you a hard time about Labour.
Well, my aim is I'm currently pushing for mandatory reselections. I help every single local independent Labour group to organise so that they can affect their local constituency Labour Party, and as long as MPs start coming from local areas and coming from the communities that they represent, all of these problems will get washed out. But at the moment, your man there is right. We've got a stain. We've got 172 stains on the red flag, and they need to be scrubbed off. That's an undeniable fact. But we live in a very difficult political system, and the reason I wouldn't,
they're all bored, aren't they? I mean, the fact is that the reason there are so many remorons in Parliament, not just the Labour Party, but across Parliament, is because they are basically being back-pocketed, or they're being promised some EU, jolly when they get kicked out of politics, when the British public realise that they're no good, and they do a kinnock, and they end up in the EU making millions.
Yeah, apart from one guy who just happens to be the other option for Prime Minister, who has never been bought, and he's never sold out, and he's stayed true to his anti-EU traditions the whole way through. They tried to tell him to say we should stay in the customs union, right? And I've read the speech they drafted him, and he was supposed to read it, and he didn't. He changed the words on the spot and said, we're going to try and get a customs union. And you can look in Parliament on the faces of all of the Remainers behind him, right? This is a guy who I just don't think he could turn. I don't think it's in him. He's like one of those old school honest Englishmen who's just going to do what he thinks is right, regardless of who's telling him he's wrong. In a way, Jeremy Corbyn is quite similar to Nigel Farage on that. In that there's no amount of stuff you could put in front of him that would make him betray the things he actually believes in. So I don't have any faith in the Parliamentary Labour Party other than people like Dennis Skinner, Emma Llewellyn-Buck. She's a really good local MP. My local MP, Christina Rees, she's really good. So there are some who are very good, and they work hard and they do their job. And then there are the careerists who we've all mentioned and we all identify. We're in no argument about who those people are. And there's a thing called a political cycle. And we can get rid of those people in one political cycle, right? It's not hard. It just takes tactical voting. One of the things I threatened the Labour Party with was, if you don't start...
Well, what it really takes is for the grassroots now to say enough. No more parachuted candidates from central office. None of these bloody cronies. We want somebody that represents us, not your party. How can we?
No? The grassroots are deselecting people all over, and me and a few other people at the moment are getting a lot of momentum. Excuse the pun. A lot of momentum behind the campaign to have mandatory reselections, and at the next conference, it's going to pass the NEC. We've already got all the votes, which means that every single MP is going to have to justify their position every year. Once a year, the local Labour Party is going to say to them, well, let's have a look at your voting record this year. You voted for that, we didn't want that. You voted for that, we didn't want that. You voted for that, we didn't want that. We're getting rid of you, we're going to have a by-election. That's what we've done. That's why they hated momentum. The media are so against people like me because we've come in and we've changed the rules of the Labour Party so that all of these careerists, they're hanging by threads. They're literally clinging on by their nails. If we activists in the grassroots decided to end their careers, we could do it like that. Click of the fingers. They've got absolutely no sway whatsoever. They're not allowed to throw their weight around anymore. You'll notice they don't speak out against Jeremy Corbyn in the media very much anymore. It's because they know. And we all started turning up to their meetings. There's 550,000 of us now, mate. Now, these Labour MPs, they're used to having 5-10 people at their constituency Labour Party meeting. They're not used to having 500. And when 500 people like me, who they've never seen before in their lives, turn up and gone, guess what? We're outvoting you. They did not like it one bit. We've taken over so many seats. We're selecting our own candidates, and it's not. But the point I would make to anyone who's thinking about voting UKIP is, I understand, and I know why, and if I'd given up hope that the Labour Party could be saved, would probably be there with you.
I just want to ask you, one or two people are asking, are you a Fabian?
No, God no. Never. And if they ask me to join, I tell them to do one, any more than I join the Mason. No, absolutely not. The Fabians are one of the worst things that ever happened to British politics. And the Fabian strategy, which is to acknowledge that you can't win fairly, so that what they do is they infiltrate the enemy and try and scupper them from inside, is the most un-British thing I can think of. I find their presence in the Labour Party offensive. I find all sub-parties' presence within the Labour Party offensive, including Momentum. I understand that Momentum were necessary to counter Tony Blair's group, which is called Progress, but I think there should be one party, and that's the Labour Party.
Thomas White points out, take a look at Michael Foot's video. That was the Labour Party before we joined the EEC. He was brilliant, wasn't he? He just didn't look too hot. Thomas White.
That's what I didn't like about the treatment of Michael Foot, that donkey jacket thing. Michael Foot had
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He had an amazing amount of respect for Her Majesty the Queen. She says it herself.
Yeah, he did.
And he was a very decent Englishman.
Yeah, he was.
And I think the way he was treated by the British press was absolutely unconscionable.
I agree. He was one of the brightest men in the chamber at the time. My God, he was an incredibly intelligent bloke. No? Thomas White, UKIP want to make the NHS private Now, hold on, listen to this. Yeah, Thomas White's making this point to you. UKIP want to make the NHS private to non-British people. The NHS is spending loads on immigration and health tourism and all that. The NHS is spending too much for pills. They pay too much for cleaning, which was made private by the Labour Party, by the way. I mean, this is one of the problems, isn't it? The Labour Party was sabotaged by really fascists. These Blairites are fascists.
Neoliberal, anti-democratic fascists. Yeah, I'd describe them as that. The point about foreigners, it is a national health service. It is not an international health service. Absolutely correct. 0.03% of the NHS operations are foreigners. The NHS does 240 million outpatient. Has 240 million outpatient people go more than once a year. And 0.03% of those are foreigners. Now, that is actually 23,000 operations per year. Okay, so it's not to be sniffed at. It's a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of things, his second point there about the overcharging for the head of NHS procurement is the former chief executive of a French pharmaceutical company. Those are the problems we need to solve first. I don't want... Look, if we have foreigners come in and they're ill and we don't treat them, there's a risk that they might make British people ill. That's why we treat foreigners. It's not just because we're this liberal, lovely people. It's the same theory that's behind inoculation. We can't let sick people come into our country and carry on being sick because it will make our people sick. That's why we treat foreigners. And I don't want to be the sort of country that sends foreign women who are in the middle of pregnancy out of the country so they can have their baby, and then the baby dies on the plane or something. I don't want Britain to ever do something like that to anyone, because we're bigger than that and we can afford it. That's not saying that I want them to invite them all in and have the untrammeled system we've got at the moment. So we mentioned Enoch Powell earlier. Enoch Powell got castigated, and I would say quite unfairly, for reading a letter that his constituent wrote him, which said that none of the people on my street have got white faces. I don't feel like I'm at home anymore. The 68-year-old woman who wrote him that letter has a right to have her voice heard, and that is all he did when he made that speech. And when he warned there would be rivers of blood, drummer Lee Rigby had his head cut off.
That's right.
If that isn't a river of blood, I don't know what is.
Well, Westminster Bridge as well. I mean, that was kind of like, you know. Oh, you know, so I have to say.
No, but wait a second.
Go on.
I've got a last point to make on this, which is that.
Go on.
Now, at the time, there was 65,000. It was projected that 65,000 non-Brits would be coming into the country per year. If Enoch Powell had said at the time that by 2018, the capital of England would be majority non-white, the press at the time would have said he was being hysterical. Well, it's 2018. The capital of England is majority non-white. If Enoch Powell had said at the time, we'll have about 500,000 people a year coming in, they would have called him a hysterical. They would have said he was wrong. Well, 2018. There's 500,000 people coming in a year. Tony Benn, one of the last things Tony Benn ever said was that Enoch Powell wasn't a racist. And I don't think Enoch Powell was. I just think Enoch Powell was a man who was very scared that the pillars of the country that he loved were going to be eroded by the weight that was being put on them. Now, that's not to say that he didn't think that the country's pillars should hold weight, an extra weight. It just meant that he thought there was too much. And it was that was the whistle, right, that said that this conversation was never going to be allowed to be had reasonably. The reaction that there was to that man showed that there was a core of people in the media who had an agenda which was to encourage and foster an irrational response to hard facts. And we've been dealing with the consequences of that programming ever since. It's not ever going to lead anywhere good. It's never going to lead anywhere good if when people come into a society, they aren't taught that they are part of that society.
That's right.
And if people are brought into a society and they're allowed to feel like they aren't, I want Muslims who are British to call themselves British Muslims. I don't want them to call their neighbours British and to call themselves Muslims. That doesn't work. I don't want Jews to come into this country and have loyalty to Israel before they have loyalty to Britain. I want them to be British. I want them to be proud to be British. And I want them to feel safe that they are British.
Damn right.
And that's the solution, right? Yeah. That's the solution. And the solution isn't all Muslims are responsible.
We do need to get tough about it, though, don't we? We do need to get tough. I mean, do we not need to say, for example, no more Saudi interference? You can bugger off with all your bloody Saudi imams. We're not having any of that Wahhabist stuff, that Salafist stuff. That's outlawed. Sharia is outlawed. Outlawed. Yeah, if you practice Sharia, you go to prison. Is any of that unfair?
No, not at all. And it's unfair on the Muslims we have here already that we let these Saudis come in and bully them like this and intimidate them and make them scared.
That's right. That's another side of it.
This stuff. Right? But the problem is that when you believe, when you have faith, when you believe in something which is higher than the realm of man, it is so hard to say, all right, I'm going to adhere to the rules of the world, because in doing that you are committing a sin. And if you know any genuine Christians who believe and have faith, and you speak to them about and unpack their beliefs of their faith, they'll tell you the exact same things that Muslims will tell you. You know, that they believe in the rule of God before the rule of man and stuff like that. Now, in a Christian society, that's not so much of a problem because all of our laws are based on that, right? So all of the temporal laws are actually extrapolations of the Mosaic Code and all the rest of it. But
yeah,
you know, we've got to try and understand that we had hundreds of very different Muslim communities from many, many different countries come into Britain, and all right, for better or worse, they integrated, some well, some less well. But by 1980, 1990, mid-90s, you know, we didn't have Wahhabi nutters cutting Lee Rigby's head off, did we?
That's right, we didn't.
We didn't have people going around.
How can the Labour Party address this issue materially instead of sacking members of Parliament that try to bring it up, which is what they did with Champion?
I defended Sarah Champion, and you can look it up on Nye Bevan News' website. There's an article.
I'm not pointing the finger at you, sir. But why? How can the Labour Party debate this majority? What needs to happen to the Labour Party that they can, and the Tory Party for that matter, that they can debate this properly?
We need to not be scared to have the conversations. The main fear, and this is the main mode of control, is with this. Calling everyone you disagree with a Nazi, everyone you disagree with a fascist, everyone you disagree with a racist. It's a tactic, which is to ensure that there is never a conversation,
never a consensus.
Well, the consensus only comes after conversation.
Sure.
If you stop the conversation, you've stopped the consensus. And
Yes.
that's what this is about.
Yes.
That's what all of this is about. And this is going back to Tommy Robinson. This is why I don't agree with Tommy Robinson, is because he knows that it's the Saudi Arabians. He knows it's the Wahhabis. He's smart. When you listen to his long form interviews, he does a very impressive interview with Oxford Union. He's got a very good live stream that he did with Sargon of Akkad. When you see that stuff, you know that he knows the nuance of the points. And then when you juxtapose that with his statement when he's in front of a large crowd in the street, he boils it down to paint by numbers. He makes it much more simple than it actually is, and it becomes an issue about all Muslims. Now, I hate that trope. Not all Muslims, right? Because the Pew polling is quite clear. 46% of British Muslims think homosexuality should be illegal, right? That's a problem. You know, you got.
Yes, it is.
It's over 40% of British Muslims think that apostasy should be severely punished. Now, what this is a sign of is that their parents, the Muslims of the parents of these younger Muslims, are very westernized, very liberal. Their religion is very private, and they're British citizens. They're part of our culture. And what does youth do? Youth rebels. And what the Saudi Arabians did was, in the immediate aftermath of the Iraq War, they got in there and they made it. They said, see, these white people just want to destroy us. And what could we say? Tony Blair just turned £100 billion into 2 million dead Arabs.
Isn't that one of the reasons, one of many, but is that not one of the reasons why Tony Blair should have been, justice should have been served, whatever way it was, but nonetheless, justice should have been served.
He'd have had the gibbet and I'd have built it for him.
Pardon?
That man, I said, if we'd had the Nuremberg trials, if we applied the Nuremberg precepts to Tony Blair, he'd be strung up by his neck and I would have built the gibbet. And for that man who created the power vacuum in Iraq and in the Middle East, into which ISIS moved, with help and weaponry from certain Western intelligence services, then creating civil strife and civil wars and head chopping in a number of Middle Eastern Arab countries, that's creating the refugee crisis. For Tony Blair then to say, oh, come on, guys, we can't be racist and we should stay in the EU, when he's the reason there's a refugee crisis, is four-faced, I want to say Fuckerye, but four-faced screwery of the worst order. Because that man is the reason there's a refugee crisis. He's the reason Syrians can't live in Syria anymore. He's the reason Iraqis don't want to live in Iraq anymore. When
Corbyn was running for leadership, he actually made I think one comment about Tony Blair, which was that if there is evidence for such, then he should be tried accordingly, like anybody else. Yeah. I think he made a statement along those lines.
Declaration of war, that was on Corbyn's part.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. What happened to that?
Well, he's not in power yet. Give us time.
He's the leader of the Labour Party, and he could be calling for that on behalf of the Labour Party, try and cleanse it.
You can. Right? You can. You look the aggressive war subsection of the UN Charter and of the human rights legislation is quite clear on this. Quite clear. What Tony Blair did was as illegal as what Hitler did to Belgium. It was that illegal. One of the things that we need to understand when we're dealing with the issue of what Tommy Robinson's coming out with and stuff is, they didn't start. No, actually, I'm not going to put it in that way. That's unfair. It was so much easier to convince them to see us as not human, and when we treated them like they weren't human.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now that's not to excuse what's happened.
But it wasn't us, though, was it? But that's propaganda and conditioning. That's propaganda and conditioning.
It was our government. Look, mate.
It was our government, yes. Go on.
He had the overwhelming support of the British Democratic Electoral Republic. Excuse me. You know, if you're an Arab, if you're a Muslim, to you it looks like Britain has overwhelmingly voted for a guy who's gone in and destroyed.
I don't think anybody voted for Iraq, though. In fairness, they voted for other things that Tony Blair and his party promised. But and 2 million of us. I think you in a previous time have said that you marched at London as well. I was there.
Yes.
But my point.
Actually,
okay. But my point. Why can't Corbyn now? Why can't Corbyn call to cleanse the Labour Party of this just absolute filth of a sin that happened in Iraq?
Tony Blair, Jeremy Corbyn, excuse me, has officially apologised on behalf of the Labour Party for the Iraq War. And until
should he not be? Is he not in a position where he could? I'm just curious. Is he not in a position where he could say the fact is that he's a war criminal and he should be facing justice?
You've just referenced the interview where he said pretty much that. You know, he said it politely in a very English way, but
yeah, he did.
He didn't mince his words.
It was a Newsnight interview, wasn't it?
Right. So it was not in his interest to say that at that time. Right. There were a lot of people in the Labour Party who really didn't want him to say that. I wasn't one of them. I was when I knew he was my guy. I was like, I'm really glad that I've supported this guy. I agree with Jeremy Corbyn on like 3 things. All right, leaving the EU, keeping the NHS in public hands, getting our trains back in public hands. And other than that, me and Jeremy Corbyn are not on the same page on a lot of things. Oh, wait, is opposition to Saudi Arabian interference? That too. And he's one of the only people who's ever been consistent about that. Again, there are a lot of problems with the guy. He's a bit weak, frankly, with his own side, because he's trying constantly to form a consensus. He genuinely believes that through dialectic, through the political argument and having the conversation, you can actually get somewhere and reach a consensus and move together somewhere. Now, some of us are a bit more realistic about human nature and think that, no, sometimes, so Tony Blair came in, introduced Clause 4, and he told the Labour Party, this is the way it is now, and if you don't like it, jog on. And I do think Jeremy Corbyn should say something similar. But he won't, because it's not in the guy's nature.
Do you think that Clause 4 was the right way to go for the Labour Party? Maybe you could explain very, very briefly what that was, because it's a long time ago now.
Right. Clause 4 says that all integral and profit-making national infrastructure should be brought into public hands, owned effectively.
You're breaking up. Please speak into your mic, Ben.
Sorry. Clause 4 is the notion that everyone should own things like the railway. It should all be brought into public hands. Now, the problem with that is that what that actually translates into is that it's all owned by the government. And as we can see with Brexit, governments aren't very good at doing some things. And so that's where the theory,
but they're purposely not doing Brexit well, it has to be said. But nonetheless, yes. No. Actually, people would tend to agree. I would tend to agree with you on that. They're not very good at running. Now, carry on.
I don't think...
Probably because they haven't got any bloody business experience, because half of them are career politicians. They've only done nothing with their lives. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
That's a big problem. They don't know anything about meeting deadlines and all the rest of it. So that's where it sort of crunches up against reality. In effect, right? So most of our energy sector is dominated by European companies that are actually owned by European governments, and that are creaming off a lot of money from us so they can subsidize cheap power and cheap trains for their domestic, for their citizens in their domestic markets. So by refusing, when Thatcher denationalized everything, she actually opened up our market.
She didn't privatize everything, because the Labour Party privatized quite a lot too. Just saying.
You know, when I say Thatcher, you can just assume I mean Tony Blair as well, by the way.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Right, as far as I'm concerned, the Thatcher era went right up until 2010.
Oh, come on. You can't compare Thatcher. She had an ideology. He had a third way. He didn't even know what the bloody hell it was.
No, wait. The third way was a PR campaign, which is basically like, I'm going to do Thatcherism, but I really don't want you to think it is. So he just came up with a PR campaign. In fact, I'm going to mention what I just said.
Okay. Carry on. Sorry.
I think the Thatcher era went up right up to 2015, actually, when David Cameron and Nick, right up until David Cameron resigned after the referendum. That's when the Thatcher era ended. Up until then, we were dealing with Thatcherite economics and Thatcherite.
I don't think that she would agree with that, but carry on.
Well, no, to her it wasn't. It wouldn't have been pure enough, but they were trying. You know what I mean? It's hard to be Thatcher when you're not Thatcher, I guess. But they did try. That's the point. They were tending to what she said, and they were accepting the norms that she set out. And I think that the norms that she set out were fundamentally incorrect. Mm-hmm. You know, because what she actually did was Margaret Thatcher wasn't successful economically. We'd just become an oil-producing nation just before Margaret Thatcher was brought into power. Yeah. And when the first bottle of North Sea oil came to shore, the guy who was in charge of BP at the time said, the next government is going to be in power for 20 years because they're going to have so much money they're not going to know what to do with. Now, what Thatcher did with that money was she used it to pay redundancy payments. She used it to keep interest rates low. She used it to stop inflation. But when you actually look at the nuts and bolts of our economy,
we should have seen what Norway did and been a little bit more like that. No, they used their oil money far more wisely.
Sovereign wealth fund, yeah. So even though the Norwegians, most of their oils, like they're now past peak, right? So the majority of their oil is actually gone. But the wealth that was generated from the sovereign wealth fund, and by the way, in Norway, I think it was a 75% rake. That meant that incoming companies, and they still came and pitched for the contracts, came in, did all the infrastructure, built it all. They got a bit of help from the Norwegian government.
And they
brought the oil to shore. They sold it on the market, and then they only got 25% of it. 75% got given to the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund. Now, Tony Benn was actually the energy minister when the first barrel of North Sea oil came to shore. And he up until his dying day, he had the first bottle of North Sea oil sat on his desk. He managed to get 25% of the North Sea revenues put into a sovereign wealth fund for the rest of us. And then Thatcher came into government, and the rest, as they say, is history. But it could have been very different. It's just we lost the arguments. It's almost as if, why was Kinnock in position? Whose choice was that? Because he wasn't effective, was he? If you think, what did Kinnock achieve? Kinnock's greatest achievement was
getting on the front page of the Sun with a light bulb saying, if he gets in with the last person in the country, please turn off the lights. That's the thing I remember about Kinnock more than
any politician who's so weak that Rupert Murdoch with one front page can undo their chances isn't worth it.
That's right. He's not the Sun won it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the Sun what won it, mate. It was the British public. The British public looked at that.
That's right. We saw through him. Look, hold on. Yeah. Whoa, what? Benjamin Jenkins, thank you very, very much. Really fascinating conversation. I really, really appreciate it, man. Bye, Nevin. Oh, you're on the same. Oh, now he's on the same, because I had problems with Discord earlier. He's on the same fader as this. Oh, dear. Ben. Thank you. It's great to have you on the show, and please pop back up on when other people are here, because it's really nice to mix it up, even if you do annoy Thomas White. God bless you, Thomas.
We actually agree on quite a lot. And
I think you probably do, actually. I think you probably do, and he's quite stubborn.
He believes in that.
Oh, I can't hear you because you're both on the same fader. But look, Ben, God bless you, man. This is a balanced show, yeah? This is a balanced show. He's a Brexiteer, yeah? And he's a good bloke. We don't necessarily have to see eye to eye on everything, do we? If it's not for, I don't know, we I don't know. Oh look, that's Downliner popped in. I won't be able to hear him either because he's on the same fader as the theme tune. I'll try and work out the faders. Yeah. You've been checking out Daily Chaos with me, Olly Connelly. Benjamin Jenkins on here from By Never News tonight. And thanks for watching. Thanks. God bless you. Paul Rees Hampson's Epic Show. God bless you. Hey, shout, Ben.
I said thank you all. It's lovely talking again. I'll speak to you soon.
Oh, you're welcome, mate. You're welcome. You're welcome. They absolutely hate you. They think you're a trot. God bless you, mate.
I get that a lot.
Oh, I tell you. You're a funny lot. Here's to us, folks. And bugger! Plutocracy. Yeah. All right. Okay. See you tomorrow. 7. And that's, yeah. And hey, Paul Hart, by the way. Hey, Paul. Yeah. Oil. Like diamonds. Yeah. Good to see you, Paul. All right. Ciao, ciao, folks. God bless you. All right. Mañana.
Bye, Mom.